Chapter 1527. Demonic Neonate wanted to reach out to take off the ring on the girl's finger, but after some hesitation, she didn't reach out. She turned to look at Zhou, her large eyes clearly pleading. "Grim Demon, do you know this girl's origins?" Zhou asked Grim Demon. "I've never seen her before. At least not in the mythical era." Grim Demon looked carefully for a while and said after some thought, "However, to be protected by these 7 extraordinary devils, she must have a great background. It's best not to touch her if possible." Zhou also felt that it was best not to touch her. She resembled Tiantian too much. If she was really as powerful as Tiantian, it was impossible to take anything from her. However, the girl looked lifeless. The huge commotion didn't wake her up, so she might be dead. It was worth a try. He looked down at Demonic Neonate and saw her eyes filled with anticipation. Zhou decided to give it a try. Zhou knew very well that although his level was higher than Demonic Neonate's, it probably wasn't safe for him to obtain something that even Demonic Neonate couldn't obtain. He summoned the dragon imprisoned armor and wore it. Zhou gathered all his strength to defend himself before reaching out to take off the ring on the girl's finger. The 7 devils bared their teeth below, looking like they wanted to skin Zhou alive. Demonic Neonate glared at them and they immediately shrank back, glaring fiercely at Zhou. Bam! Just as Zhou's finger touched the ring, he felt a powerful force eject him out. His body slammed into the wall like a bullet. Thankfully, Zhou summoned the Chaos Egg in time. The Chaos Egg bounced back and forth between the walls for a while before slowly stopping. Why is this force much stronger than when Demonic Neonate took it? Zhou spat out a mouthful of blood. Although Demonic Neonate had been ejected by the force when she took it, the force was clearly much weaker than when Zhou took it. Otherwise, Demonic Neonate's body probably wouldn't have been able to withstand the instant force. Zhou returned to the platform and looked at the silver-haired girl who was dead or alive. He frowned in thought. His recovery ability wasn't bad. His injuries were slowly recovering, but even if he recovered, it was probably impossible to remove the ring using the original method. Demonic Neonate was still staring at the ring. Clearly, she cared a lot about it. Zhou stared at the ring for a while. The ring was made of metal, but he didn't know what it was. The gem wasn't a diamond. It was crystalline with a hint of blue. It was clearly transparent, but no matter which angle one looked at it from, it was impossible to see the inside of the gem. "Do you want a ring or a gem?" Zhou asked Demonic Neonate. "Gem," Demonic Neonate hurriedly said. "That's easy." Zhou summoned the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and used Cleave to cut the ring's metal ring. Dang! With a metallic clang, the Golden Wyrm Scissors, which could cut hell-level creatures and weapons in half, couldn't even leave a mark on the metal ring. Instead, it was the Golden Wyrm Scissors that flew out and brushed past Zhou's cheek. If Zhou hadn't dodged quickly, half his head would have been sliced off. The Golden Wyrm Scissors stabbed into the wall, leaving only the handle outside. The Golden Wyrm Scissors trembled for a while before flying out. Zhou was somewhat disappointed. The Golden Wyrm Scissors had such powerful destructive power, yet it failed to damage the ring. It was probably very difficult to take it off. Demonic Neonate wanted the ring so much, so it was probably something she needed very much. It was very likely to help her evolve, so Zhou didn't want to give up. It was just too difficult for Demonic Neonate to evolve. She didn't eat crystals at all, and ordinary things couldn't help her evolve. It wasn't easy for her to find something she needed, so she had to give it a try no matter what. Zhou thought for a moment before summoning the immortal culling sword and slashing at the ring with all his might. Clang! Zhou's immortal culling sword flew out, but the ring didn't leave any marks. What's this ring? Is this girl really Satan? Zhou increasingly felt that the possibility of the girl being Satan was very high. In many legends, Satan was a monster like a snake or a red dragon, but the girl in front of him was abnormally beautiful. If she was Satan, Zhouwen was more willing to believe that Satan and Lucifer were the same person. Tian is God, so Lucifer, the fallen angel, is this girl. It seems to make sense. After all, angels were created by God. Perhaps Lucifer was created according to God's own appearance. Zhouwen thought for a moment and decided to give it another try. Since it was impossible to forcefully sever the ring, Zhouwen could only think of a way to remove the ring from the girl's finger. Thankfully, Zhouwen cultivated in many essence energy art. He circulated the different essence energy arts, hoping that there was a power that could make the ring or the girl's power not repel him. Perhaps he could successfully remove the ring. Bam! The first order of chaos failed as Zhouwen was sent flying. Bam! The Tao art failed as well. Bam! Qi refinement art, demon god bloodline catalog, godfiend era, and other essence energy arts failed one after another. As long as they touched the ring, Zhouwen would immediately be ejected. Zhouwen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and walked to the girl's side again. This time, he circulated the ancient Sovereign Sutra. This was his last essence energy art. If he couldn't even use the ancient Sovereign Sutra, he would probably have no choice but to give up. The light of human sovereign bloomed from Zhouwen's body, making him seem as though he had turned into a shadow of light. He extended his glowing palm and touched the ring with his fingers again. Bam! Zhouwen was sent flying faster than ever before. He was as fast as light, and before he could even summon the Chaos Egg, he slammed into the wall. With a loud boom, even the extremely sturdy wall that was several meters thick collapsed from Zhouwen's impact. The dragon-imprisoned armor on Zhouwen's body cracked from the impact. A large portion of it shattered on his back. Blood spewed out of Zhouwen's mouth as he struggled a few times, but he failed to stand up. He felt as though his entire body had fallen apart. It was unknown how many bones had shattered. Demonic Neonate came to Zhouwen's side and sized up his injuries. Her eyes were filled with anxiety as she shook her head at Zhouwen, as though she wanted to tell him not to try anymore. She didn't want the gem. Zhouwen summoned a mythical pill essence and swallowed it after transforming it into a pill. His injuries rapidly healed and soon, he was almost healed. Zhouwen stood up and wanted to walk towards the girl, but Demonic Neonate tugged at the corner of his clothes. No. Demonic Neonate looked at Zhouwen and shook her head repeatedly, her eyes filled with determination. I've already tried so many times. One more time doesn't matter. Zhouwen wanted to try again. He didn't use any other powers and only used the Lost Immortal Sutra. Chapter 1528. The Lost Immortal Sutra was very pure and didn't have any special attributes. It didn't augment his body much, but it was very powerful in terms of primordial energy usage. However, this strength wasn't meant for combat. Therefore, Zhouwen rarely used the Lost Immortal Sutra in combat. He would basically add a simulated primordial energy art to it. I hope it'll be of some use. Zhouwen was trying everything he could. At this stage, he couldn't accept it if he didn't try all the possibilities. In fact, the Lost Immortal Sutra didn't need Zhouwen to circulate it himself. It constantly circulated in Zhouwen's body. It removed the various powers that were added to it and restored the Lost Immortal Sutra to its original state. Even His Excellency can't take it down. It's useless even if you try. It's best you leave quickly. I have a nagging feeling that something's amiss here. Grim Demon didn't wish to stay in such a dangerous place any longer as he urged Zhouwen to leave quickly. Zhouwen ignored him. After returning the Lost Immortal Sutra to its origins, he put away the dragon-imprisoned armor and extended a hand to touch the girl's hand. In fact, Zhouwen also knew that the chances of success weren't high. Even sky-stealing couldn't take the ring off. The chances of an primordial energy art like the Lost Immortal Sutra being effective without any special powers augmentation were slim. Zhouwen wanted to give it a try and see if the Lost Immortal Sutra's imitation ability could work. Perhaps it could simulate the girl's aura. Of course, this was also a delusion. The demon god bloodline catalog couldn't scan the girl's body and transform into her. The Lost Immortal Sutra was an primordial energy art that purely simulated auras. She didn't have any aura, so it was probably impossible. Various thoughts flashed through his mind as Zhou Wen's finger touched the ring on the girl's finger. Zhou Wen was already prepared to be sent flying, but nothing happened when his fingertip touched the ring. "I'm fine." Zhou Wen was overjoyed. Although the Lost Immortal Sutra couldn't simulate the girl's aura, making her seem like a dead person without any aura, there was no way to simulate it. However, this ordinary Lost Immortal Sutra allowed Zhou Wen to finally touch the ring. "Girl, it's useless to leave the ring with you anyway. Lend it to me. If you need anything in the future, tell me in a dream. If you want clothes, a house, or money, I'll burn them for you." As Zhou Wen spoke, he carefully lifted the girl's finger and slowly removed the ring with his other hand. Roar! Seeing the ring slide on the girl's slender finger, the 7 demons were immediately enraged. Various colors of light spewed out from their bodies, transforming into demonic phantoms that enveloped their bodies. All of them roared ferociously, wanting to charge forward and eat Zhou Wen. Scram! Demonic Neonate lightly shouted, and the 7 enraged abyss devils immediately extinguished their flames. Although they didn't immediately retreat, they didn't dare to charge forward again. They stood there with conflicted expressions. Taking advantage of this time, Zhou Wen removed the ring from the girl's finger without any accidents. "Thank you." Zhou Wen placed the ring in his palm, pressed his palms together, and bowed to the girl before throwing the ring to Demonic Neonate. "How did you get it? Could it be that you were deliberately acting the previous few times to gain my lord's favor?" Grim Demon looked at Zhou Wen suspiciously. Just now, Zhou Wen had unleashed all sorts of powers, but he had failed to take off the ring. Now, he had taken it off without doing anything. This made Grim Demon suspect that his previous actions were all an act. Zhou Wen couldn't be bothered with him. When the 7 abyss devils saw that the ring had fallen into Demonic Neonate's hands, they were discouraged and didn't have any thoughts of charging forward. Demonic Neonate caught the ring and left the girl's palm. The ring itself didn't repel Demonic Neonate. When Demonic Neonate's finger touched the gem on the ring, the gem landed on Demonic Neonate's fingertip like a water droplet. It swayed slightly on her fingertip like a water droplet on a lotus leaf or a transparent jelly. Demonic Neonate casually threw the ring on the ground before placing the jelly-like gem into her mouth. What a prodigal! When Zhou Wen saw Demonic Neonate throw the ring on the ground, he hurriedly went over to pick it up. Since the golden WYRM scissors and immortal culling sword failed to injure the ring, it was definitely extraordinary. Zhou Wen held the ring and wiped the dust off it with his hand. He planned on storing it in the chaos space. Perhaps it would be of some use in the future. Before putting it in, Zhou Wen tried squeezing it hard, but to his surprise, the metal ring broke with a crack. Zhou Wen was dumbfounded when he saw the broken ring fall to the ground. What's this? It was so hard just now. Why did it suddenly become so weak? Zhou Wen couldn't accept this outcome. He picked up the fragments and squeezed them again, only to be crushed to smithereens. Isn't this just ordinary metal? Zhou Wen was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. After all this time, this thing was just ordinary metal. The only thing that was really good was the gem. The reason why the ring was so hard was either because of the gem or because of the girl's strangeness. After Demonic Neonate ate the gem, she seemed to be drunk. Her body swayed and she fell to the ground. Zhou Wen hurriedly flashed to Demonic Neonate's side and picked her up. "Neonate, are you all right?" Zhou Wen patted Demonic Neonate's cheek, hoping to wake her up. "I'm going to sleep." Demonic Neonate couldn't even open her eyes as she said in a daze. She flipped over and huddled in Zhou Wen's arms. She grabbed Zhou Wen's clothes and quickly fell asleep. Zhou Wen called out a few more times, but Demonic Neonate didn't respond at all. She fell asleep just like that. What's going on? Is she going to evolve? Zhou Wen looked at Demonic Neonate in his arms and was momentarily unsure of what was happening. Typical companion beasts' bodies would rapidly mutate when they evolve. Even those with slower body mutations would form an energy envelope and slowly evolve in a certain energy environment. However, demonic neonate only looked like she was drunk and asleep. There weren't any intense energy fluctuations from her body, nor did her body undergo any anomalies. What was even stranger was that Zhou wanted to unsummon demonic neonate back, but he realized that he couldn't. Grim Demon, what's going on? Zhou looked at Grim Demon and asked with a frown. This? I'm not too sure either. I already said to let you go. Giving His Excellency random food. Something must have happened. Grim Demon wasn't sure what was going on. Zhou used Truth Listener to scan demonic neonate's body and didn't discover any problems. It was as though she was really asleep. Gotcha! The stone platform beneath their feet suddenly shook. Zhou and Grim Demon hurriedly flew up. The stone platform with the silver-haired girl lying on it slowly sank. Chapter 1529. He watched as the stone platform slowly sank. Beneath the stone platform was a bottomless abyss. There was no light in the deep hole below. Even his gaze seemed to be devoured. As the stone platform descended, the figure of the girl lying on the stone platform gradually became blurry. Zhou was sizing up the bottomless pit below when he suddenly saw the girl open her eyes and smile strangely at him. She opened her mouth as though she was saying something. However, Zhou didn't hear anything, nor did he know what she was saying. Zhou couldn't help but tremble. The girl and the stone platform had already sunk into the bottomless abyss and were nowhere to be seen. Was that an illusion? Zhou wasn't sure if he had really seen the girl open her eyes and speak. However, Zhou remembered the pair of silver pupils and the strange smile very clearly. It shouldn't be an illusion, right? Zhou tried his best to recall the girl's lips, trying to guess what she was saying. However, before Zhou could think carefully, it was as though there was an earthquake. The entire building collapsed. The 7 devils glared at Zhou and jumped into the bottomless abyss. In the blink of an eye, the 7 devils vanished. Zhou and Grim Demon didn't dare take the risk of jumping down. All they could do was escape the building. Not long after they left, the building completely collapsed as though it had been sucked into a bottomless abyss. Soon, even the ruins vanished. The bottomless abyss-like cave vanished. The spot where the building was had turned into a pit. Soon, flowers that didn't age or die grew in the pit as though the building and the bottomless abyss had never existed. Grim Demon, did you see the girl open her eyes just now? Zhou asked Grim Demon. No, when did she open her eyes? Grim Demon asked in puzzlement. Not long after the stone platform sank into the hole and was about to fade into the darkness, she seemed to open her eyes and say something. Didn't you see it? Zhou recounted in detail. Did you see wrongly? I stared at her from beginning to end. Until she disappeared, I didn't see her open her eyes, much less say a word, Grim Demon said with certainty. Zhou frowned in silence. Although he felt a little dazed at that instant, as though he was dreaming, his brain still remembered it very clearly. It was unlikely that he had seen wrongly. Grim Demon didn't see it, so Zhou didn't ask further. He looked at demonic neonate in his arms. She was still sleeping, looking very soundly. Her lips were still sucking on her thumb. We have to think of a way to return. Zhou looked around, hoping to find a way to return to Earth. Zhou had been to the dimension once before, but with the Ice Maiden leading the way, he knew how to return. However, he didn't know how to return now. I think we should stay here and wait for His Excellency to wake up. It might be more dangerous to run around in such a place, Grim Demon said. Zhou naturally knew that Grim Demon was right, but who knew when demonic neonate would wake up? If demonic neonate was really evolving, according to Zhou's previous experience, the higher the level of a companion beast, the longer it took for it to evolve. The time it took for a companion beast to advance to the terror grade was considered short. If it was long, it might even take a few months. Zhouwen couldn't wait and do nothing. There was still an endless sea of flowers around him. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Apart from flowers, there was no vitality in the world. The vitality of the flowers was very strange to begin with. They looked full of vitality, but they also had a deathly aura that resembled ash. Grim Demon, what else do you know about the land of the fallen? Zhouwen asked Grim Demon. I don't think so. Oh right. I seem to remember hearing an angel say, the land of the fallen is also called Paradise Lost. It's a place where there's eternal misfortune and no happiness. Grim Demon said as he tried his best to recall. When Zhouwen heard the words Paradise Lost, he thought of a mythical epic called Paradise Lost. The story told in it was related to Satan. After Satan was defeated, he was sent to hell by God, but Satan wasn't willing to accept defeat. He waited for an opportunity to take revenge. Once, Satan finally found an opportunity to transform into a snake and enter the Garden of Eden. He tempted Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. In the end, Adam and Eve were chased out of the Garden of Eden. This was only a mythical epic. Even if the Garden of Eden really existed, it was hard to say if there were Adam and Eve. Is Sweetie living in the Garden of Eden? Zhouwen suddenly thought of Tiantian, but he couldn't connect Tiantian's image with the omnipotent God. Grim Demon recalled some information he had heard, but it wasn't of any help to Zhouwen and company's present situation. He still couldn't think of a way to leave. Hell is a prison used to imprison devils. Even in the dimension, this is an extremely special place. It's definitely not that easy to leave this place. Let's wait for His Excellency to wake up before making any plans. Grim Demon tried his best to persuade Zhouwen not to act rashly. Zhouwen wasn't afraid of loneliness. It wasn't a problem to stay here for a few years, but something could happen in Guide City at any time. Zhouwen was afraid that Li Xian and company wouldn't be able to handle it. After pondering for a moment, Zhouwen walked in a direction with demonic neonate in his arms. He decided to give it another try. However, the moment Zhouwen walked, he discovered something very magical. When he walked forward, the flowers in front of him automatically parted and made way. These flowers can move on their own? Then why haven't I seen them move before? Zhouwen attempted to walk in another direction. However, no matter which direction Zhouwen walked in, the flowers in front of him would automatically make way as though they were avoiding him. Zhouwen glanced at demonic neonate in his arms and said to Grim Demon, "Walk in the other direction." Grim Demon walked in another direction, but the flowers didn't make way for him. Catch! Zhouwen handed demonic neonate to Grim Demon and gave it a try himself. The outcome was the same as Grim Demon's. The flowers didn't make way for him. Now, it was very obvious that the flowers were making way for demonic neonate. This didn't happen when I summoned demonic neonate previously. From the looks of it, it's because demonic neonate ate that gem. Zhouwen thought for a moment before carrying demonic neonate and continuing walking forward. Wherever Zhouwen, or rather demonic neonate, went, the flowers would make way, forming a flower path. Zhouwen walked along the flower path. After walking for a short while, Zhouwen and Grim Demon were surprised to discover that they had reached the end of the sea of flowers. In the distance they could see a continuous mountain range. At the foot of the mountain, there was smoke curling up. A small city was located at the foot of the mountain. Chapter 1530. Humans. There are humans there? From afar, Zhouwen saw that there were humans in the small city. Furthermore, there were quite a number of them. Zhouwen used Truth Listener to carefully sweep the area a few more times. After confirming that the other party was a human and not a humanoid dimensional creature, he looked at Grim Demon and asked, "Grim Demon, are you sure this is the land of the fallen of the dimension?" This. Grim Demon was originally very certain, but when he saw the humans in the city, he wasn't sure. A creature that could survive in a dimension had to be at least at the mythical stage. How many mythical creatures were there among humans? In the small city in front of him, There seemed to be at least 100,000 people. It was unknown if the entire Earth Federation could gather so many mythical humans. Furthermore, the small city was right next to the land of the fallen. Ignoring humans, even powerful dimensional creatures wouldn't choose to build a city in such a place. Seeing that Grim Demon wasn't sure, Zhou immediately walked towards the small city. The sea of flowers ended at the cliff. Below was a bottomless abyss, and on the other side of the cliff was a continuous mountain range. The small city was built on the mountain opposite. There was no path from here to the small city opposite. However, the bottomless abyss wasn't a problem for Zhou and Grim Demon. They could easily fly over. For safety reasons, Zhou even released musical note sprites to probe. In the end, musical note sprites flew freely in the air and didn't discover any danger. Only then did Zhou fly towards the human city opposite with demonic neonate in his arms. The city was built on a mountain. On the side facing the cliff, there was a door. Outside the door was a platform. Some humans were setting up stalls on the platform. It was a bustling market with quite a number of people. When Zhou flew over with demonic neonate in his arms, he didn't use his terror transformation to hide himself. It wasn't that he didn't want to hide, but that demonic neonate couldn't. It was useless even if he hid. Soon, many people saw Zhou fly over with demonic neonate in his arms. As for Grim Demon, most people couldn't see him due to his terror transformation. Those who saw Zhou stood up and widened their eyes as they stared blankly at Zhou, who was flying towards the platform. It was as though they had seen something unbelievable. All of them widened their eyes and wore horrified expressions as they stood rooted to the ground in a daze. Anyone who saw Zhou had the same expression. The vendors stopped hawking and the buyers forgot what they were holding as all of them looked at Zhou. "May I know where you are?" Zhou flew close to the platform and greeted before asking. He had a feeling that there was something wrong with this city and these humans, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Ah! At this time, the people seemed to wake up from a dream, as if they had seen something terrifying. One by one, they turned around and fled into the city. Some people even threw the things in their hands out. Instantly, the market was in chaos. By the time Zhou snapped to his senses, the huge market was already empty. The ground was a mess. "Do I look that terrifying?" Zhou touched his face and asked Grim Demon. "Compared to me, you are a little uglier, but it's not to the point of being frightening. The residents of this small city are too inexperienced. They haven't seen anything uglier." "It's nothing out of the ordinary," Grim Demon said smugly. If demonic neonate could still move, Zhou would have gotten demonic neonate to retract Grim Demon into the demonic sword. This fellow was born shameless. Zhou carried demonic neonate and walked into the city. When the humans realized that he had followed them into the city, they were horrified. All of them fled with all their might. Even the humans in the city who didn't know what had happened were scrambling to escape. The owners of the shops on both sides of the road closed their doors and closed their windows tightly. After a while, there was no one left on the long street, and it was littered with trash. "Are these people's brains broken?" Zhou took out a mirror and looked at himself. He didn't discover anything about himself that was worth being afraid of. He had one nose and two eyes. He looked the same as them, a normal human. Are the humans in this city mentally ill? What's there to be afraid of when they see a human? Grim Demon clearly found it odd. They aren't mentally ill. They are just afraid of something. Zhou frowned in thought. Before he could figure out a reason, he saw the people who had fled on the other end of the long street walk back, trembling in fear. The leader was an old man with white hair and beard. His beard almost reached his waist, and he held a cane in his hand. He didn't look stable when he walked, as though he would fall at any moment. Many people followed behind the elder and walked towards Zhou and company. Their eyes were filled with fear, but despite their fear, they still followed the elder slowly. Zhou stood on the long street and waited for them to walk over. Since they were willing to come, it meant that they could still communicate. All he needed to do was clarify the matter. Although they were in a dimension, they were all humans after all. They should be easier to communicate with than dimensional creatures. Although the elder's eyes were filled with fear, he still walked over step by step. When he was dozens of meters away from Zhou and couldn't communicate face to face, the elder suddenly threw away his cane and fell to the ground, bowing at Zhou. With the elder's bow, the crowd behind him bowed as well. "Your Excellency, please spare that child's life. If you want to eat her, eat me." The elder kowtowed as he said with tears streaming down his face. "What's going on?" Zhou was dumbfounded. How did he become some demon king? Furthermore, he was only hugging demonic neonate in such a gentle posture. It didn't look like he wanted to eat her. Are these people's brains flooded with water? Zhou looked at the people who were worshipping him and begging him not to eat the child. Zhou now agreed with Grim Demon's point of view. Perhaps these people were really crazy. Zhou felt that it was clearly very difficult to explain to a bunch of lunatics that he wasn't a demon king or that he wouldn't eat children. Therefore, he planned on going along with their words and figuring out the situation. "How do you know I'm a demon king?" Zhou asked the white-haired elder. The white-haired elder's body trembled, but he quickly answered respectfully, "Apart from you, Your Excellency, who else can come out of Lost Paradise? Apart from you, who else can transform into such a human?" Zhou opened his mouth and suddenly realized that it wasn't easy to explain. These people didn't seem to believe him even if he said he was human. Chapter 1531. "I know who these people are," Grim Demon suddenly shouted. Zhou looked at Grim Demon. As Grim Demon had been in his terror form the entire time, the others couldn't see him. Therefore, the elder and the group of people only saw Zhou turn his head to the side, as though he was staring at the void. This made them even more panicked as they found Zhou incomprehensible and unpredictable. He was definitely the great demon king of the Lost Paradise. They call this place Paradise Lost, not the land of the fallen, nor is it hell. If this place is really related to the myth of Paradise Lost, then it's not difficult to guess the origins of these people. Adam and Eve were tempted by Satan to eat the forbidden fruit and were chased out of the Garden of Eden. If this story doesn't happen on Earth but in a dimension, then all of this can be explained, Grim Demon said. Zhou immediately understood what Grim Demon was getting at. Grim Demon was trying to say that these people were actually the descendants of Adam and Eve. However, on second thought, Zhou felt that something was amiss. In the myths and legends of God, Adam and Eve should be the ancestors of humanity. According to Grim Demon's guess, it didn't match. If Adam and Eve had reproduced here after being chased out of the Garden of Eden, they had never been to Earth. How could there be such legends on Earth? As though seeing through Zhou's thoughts, Grim Demon said, Adam and Eve betrayed God and ate the forbidden fruit. After being chased out, where could they go? Apart from a place like the Garden of Eden, the dimension isn't suitable for humans to survive. The only place they can leave is probably the Lost Paradise. You can tell from their bodies that there are no mythical humans among them. They are all legendary or epic as you humans call them. For such a standard to build a city in a dimension, it's only possible if they are next to the Lost Paradise and receive its protection. Zhou knew that Grim Demon was right. He could already vaguely sense the nomological powers of the dimension in this tiny mountain city, but compared to the true dimensional laws Zhou had sensed, it was much weaker. Clearly, this place was affected by the Lost Paradise, which was why these humans were able to survive here. However, this was only Grim Demon's guess. Perhaps these humans were brought over from Earth by dimensional experts as experimental subjects. It was even possible that some humans on Earth had some fortuitous encounter and came here by accident. Are you the king of this city? Zhou stared at the elder and asked. The elder waited for a while, but Zhou didn't say a word. He felt uneasy as he guessed what the Demon King was up to. When he suddenly heard Zhou Wen's question, he jumped in fright. He prostrated on the ground and said in fear and trepidation, "Your Majesty, you are the only king. I'm only the city lord of this city, and also your slave. If you need a life sacrifice, please take my life away and leave that child's life. Since you know that I'm the only king here, then tell me, who gave you the courage to negotiate with me?" Zhou Wen thought to himself, instead of wasting my breath explaining, I might as well use my identity as the Infernal King to figure things out. Everyone was immediately alarmed and afraid. The elder kowtowed repeatedly. "Your Majesty, we definitely have no intention of offending you, nor do we dare negotiate with you. We just hope to obtain your pity. Our ancestors were able to survive here because of your mercy. Our lives belong to you, and everything here belongs to you. We don't have the qualifications to negotiate with you. We only hope that you will be merciful, Your Excellency Demon King." As Zhou Wen listened to the elder's nagging, he increasingly felt that grim demon's guess might be right. These people might really be the descendants of Adam and Eve. "Take me to see this city," Zhou Wen said indifferently to the elder's pleas. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'll lead the way. What do you want to see?" The elder hurriedly said. "What do you think?" Zhou Wen glanced at him indifferently. The elder immediately broke out into a cold sweat as his mind raced. Soon, he seemed to think of something and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I understand. Please follow me." The elder crouched down and led the way. The others hurriedly retreated to the sides of the road, not daring to stand in front of Zhou Wen. The style of this city resembled the ancient style of the West District. Zhou Wen remembered that it was called Gothic architecture. Furthermore, it was obvious that this place was very backward. There were no electronic devices, not even electric light. Clearly, the technology here was almost zero. When he walked to the middle of the city, Zhou Wen was surprised to discover that there was a Rubik's Cube here. Just like the Rubik's Cube on Earth, the Rubik's Cube here also displayed the image of the Dubhe star. There's actually a Rubik's Cube here. That's easy. I just need to pass through the Rubik's Cube and reach the Dubhe star before teleporting back to Earth. Zhou Wen was delighted at first, but he immediately rejected this method. It was true that he could reach the Dubhe star through the Rubik's Cube, but to do so, he had to clear the Dubhe star dimensional zone. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave. Back in the Venus dimensional zone, someone had already verified that as long as one entered a dimensional zone through the Rubik's Cube, they could only fight to the death. Unless they cleared it, there was no possibility of leaving. The elder didn't know what Zhou Wen was thinking. He hunched his body and led the way, not daring to look back at Zhou Wen. Since Zhou Wen didn't say a word, he didn't dare speak casually. Although this small city was ancient, it was filled with an artistic aura. There were many carvings on the buildings, and there were statues everywhere. There were humans and statues of strange creatures. After walking for a while, the elder brought Zhou Wen to a garden. There were many flowers and plants planted in the garden, making it look very beautiful. Towards the back of the garden stood 2 tombstones. Zhou Wen didn't recognize the words on them. When Grim Demon saw them, he immediately shouted, "Indeed, these fellows are the descendants of Adam and Eve. That's Adam and Eve's tombstone. Your Majesty, my ancestors are your friends. Unfortunately, they don't have the great power of eternal life like you. They can only be buried here." As the elder spoke, he felt abnormally uneasy, unsure if his guess was right. If he guessed wrongly and angered the Demon King, he didn't know what the consequences would be. "All of you get out," Zhou Wen said coldly. "Yes, Your Majesty." The elder glanced at the demonic neonate in Zhou Wen's arms, but he didn't dare say anything disobedient. He led his men out and closed the door to the garden. "I knew it. Those fellows are the descendants of Adam and Eve," Grim Demon said smugly to Zhou Wen. Chapter 1532. Don't you find it a little strange? Zhouwen said as he looked at the two tombstones. What's strange about it? Why can't I tell? Grim Demon looked left and right, but he didn't see any problems. I don't know the words on the tombstone. Just as you said, one tombstone belongs to Adam and the other belongs to Eve. That's right, right? Zhouwen said as he pointed at the tombstone. That's right. Grim Demon nodded. That's strange. Aren't they husband and wife? Shouldn't husband and wife be buried together? Why are they buried in two graves and erected two tombstones? Zhouwen said. Grim Demon wasn't human, so he wasn't very sensitive about this matter. However, he had seen humans buried together in the past. It was indeed as Zhouwen had said. He found it somewhat strange. Why don't we dig up this grave and see if it's Adam and Eve inside? Grim Demon said as he stared at the tombstone. I'm not interested in knowing if it's Adam and Eve inside. I just want to know how we can return to Earth. Zhouwen wasn't in the mood to verify if Adam and Eve were there. The spatial teleportation ability of the Singularity universe couldn't be used between the dimension and Earth's universe. If he wanted to return, apart from using the Rubik's Cube, he could only return to the buffer zone between Earth's universe and the dimension like Zhouwen did last time. However, without the Ice Maiden leading the way, Zhouwen didn't know how he could reach there. Even if she was still there, he was willing to lead the way. This wasn't where the Ice Maiden used to be. It was hard to say if he could return. Zhouwen could sense that the further he was from the Sea of Flowers, the greater the influence of the dimensional laws. In the mountain range behind the city, the dimensional forces became stronger. Don't ask me. It's useless even if you ask. I've only been to the dimension before I was born, Grim Demon said as he spread his hands. Zhouwen thought to himself, then aren't you spouting nonsense? The Guardians were created by the dimension. All the Guardians came from the dimension when they were in the cocoon state. As Zhouwen was thinking, he suddenly felt his phone vibrate. He extended it to take a look and realized that the dungeon he had downloaded had finally been downloaded successfully. This dungeon sure took a long time to download. Zhouwen clicked on the desktop and searched for the newly generated dungeon. After searching the table for a while, he was surprised to find that no auxiliary star instance dungeon had been generated. The new instance dungeon had a picture of the Big Dipper, and the name written below it was Big Dipper. It can't be. It took so long to download all the Big Dipper? Zhouwen was alarmed as he hurriedly opened the dungeon and let the blood-colored avatar enter. After entering the dungeon, Zhouwen immediately recognized it. This was the Dubhe Star dungeon that Tyrannosaurus had previously entered. Could it be that the Dubhe dimensional zone that appeared this time isn't a single-planet dimensional zone? The entire Big Dipper is a large multi-planet dimensional zone? The more Zhouwen thought about it, the more he felt that he was right. Since he was already in, Zhouwen summoned the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and the Golden Sniper. At the same time, he got Tyrant Behemoth to charge over and smash open the door to the Dubhe Star Palace. Inside the palace, there was indeed a creature that was identical to the one in real life. It wore purple crystal armor and sat inside the palace. However, its appearance in the game was cartoonish and looked cuter. It didn't look as realistic as it did in real life. Tyrant Behemoth had already rushed in, but Zhouwen knew very well that Tyrant Behemoth's current strength wasn't enough to fight the Dubhe Star creature. Therefore, when Tyrant Behemoth rushed in front of the purple crystal armor, Zhouwen secretly got the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors to fly over. He held the sniper rifle's trigger and fired at the purple crystal armor at the palace entrance. Tyrant Behemoth was the first to arrive in front of the purple crystal armor. It opened its mouth to swallow it. The purple crystal armor finally moved. It raised its hand and pressed down. Immediately, terrifying purple light shot out in all directions, instantly forming an omnipresent explosion of light. The blood-colored avatar standing at the door was instantly killed as the game screen darkened. This attack is a little too strong. It's clearly an area of effect attack, but the dragon-imprisoned armor on me failed to defend against it at all. I was instantly killed. Zhouwen frowned in thought. Although he had been instantly killed, Zhouwen still obtained a lot of information. This was all thanks to his disqualified ability. From the information I obtained when I died, the power that killed the blood-colored avatar should be a high-temperature power. Furthermore, it's accompanied by terrifying radiation. The lethality of this radiation isn't weaker than high temperature. It might even be the main reason why the blood-colored avatar died instantly. As Zhouwen recalled the feeling of death, he made a deduction. After studying it for a while, Zhouwen felt that the Chaos Egg should be able to withstand the attack for a short period of time. However, it was useless. He still had to kill the dimensional creature. I'll give it another try. Zhouwen dripped his blood to revive and entered the Dubhe Star dungeon again. To Zhouwen's surprise, he really entered. The Dubhe Star dungeon didn't have a time limit. He could enter at any time. That's easy. I'll die a few more times and obtain enough information. It shouldn't be difficult to kill it. With the golden flood dragon scissors in hand, Zhouwen still had a chance. After entering the dungeon again, Zhouwen summoned the golden flood dragon scissors and got it to rush into the palace. Zhouwen hid in the Chaos Egg. His current mission wasn't to help, but to ensure that he wouldn't be killed. Otherwise, once he died, no matter how strong the golden flood dragon scissors was, it would be useless. It would disappear with him. The golden flood dragon scissors transformed into a golden beam of light that shot towards the amethyst-armored creature. The creature raised its palm again as a purple explosion of light instantly filled the entire dimensional zone. The Chaos Egg immediately produced a large number of solid essence energy crystals, nearly causing it to explode. Zhouwen hurriedly transferred the solid essence energy crystals to Tyrant Behemoth. Zhouwen constantly moved as solid essence energy crystals were constantly produced. Zhouwen tried his best, but the Chaos Egg was still on the verge of exploding. After holding on for a second, the light explosion weakened. Only then did Zhouwen heave a long sigh of relief. It had only been a second, but it was too long for him. If he had held on for another 10 seconds, he really didn't know if the Chaos Egg could hold on. Clang! A terrifying collision sound came from the palace. At the same time, another explosion of light occurred. Before Zhouwen could figure out the situation inside, the Chaos Egg produced a large number of solid essence energy crystals again. All Zhouwen could do was frantically move them again and use sky stealing to feed the solid essence energy crystals to Tyrant Behemoth. The two terrifying existences in the palace fought, but Zhouwen didn't even have the chance to watch. All he could do was try his best to survive. Only by surviving would the golden flood dragon scissors have a chance of killing the amethyst-armored creature. Chapter 1533. Bam! The Chaos Egg exploded. Too many solid essence energy crystals couldn't be transferred in time, so the Chaos Egg eventually exploded. The phone screen went black and the game ended. However, Zhouwen obtained a lot of information. What satisfied Zhouwen the most was that although the Chaos Egg had exploded in-game, Tyrant Behemoth had devoured many solid essence energy crystals before it exploded. It was showing signs of evolution. As he couldn't find a way to leave the dimension for the time being, Zhouwen decided to constantly grind the Dubhe Star dungeon. If he could clear the Dubhe Star dungeon, he might be able to use the magic cube to return to Earth. However, if he wanted to use the magic cube to return to Earth, there was still a problem that needed to be resolved. To use the magic cube to enter the Dubhe Star dungeon, 4 people had to drip their blood on the magic cube. Now that Zhouwen was alone, he had to find 3 more people to enter with him. As Zhouwen gamed, he used Truth Listener's ability to monitor the conversations of the people in the city. It didn't take long for Zhouwen to gain a good understanding of the situation in the city. This city built on a mountain was called Regretless City. Grim Demon was right. Back then, after Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, they had nowhere to go. It was Satan who showed them a way to survive. They settled beside the lost paradise. After generations of reproduction, Regretless City had its present scale. In fact, in the beginning there were only a few caves. Although these humans were born in the dimension, they looked no different from humans on Earth. Even their physical flaws were the same. No one could advance to the mythical stage with their own strength. Therefore, the strongest human in the city was only at the epic stage. To be able to survive here, apart from the protection of the lost paradise, they also needed to earn daily necessities. They were humans, not gods. They had to eat and drink every day. However, they didn't dare enter the lost paradise. Even if they entered, there was nothing to eat other than flowers. Therefore, the people of Regretless City could only head to the mountain range to search for food. However, as the power of the dimension grew stronger after entering the mountain range, ordinary citizens couldn't withstand it at all. Therefore, the places they could reach were very close. According to the information Zhou had heard, their food was the plants in the forest. Furthermore, there was something strange. In the mountain range, there was a plant whose leaves couldn't be plucked no matter how hard they tried. However, it wasn't something that could be seen at all times. It was considered lucky to see it occasionally. While Zhou was studying these things, Grim Demon wasn't idle either. He kept studying the tombstone, hoping to find some clues. However, the words on the tombstone didn't have any flaws. Grim Demon studied them for a long time but failed to find any problems. In the end, Killer Demon made up his mind and decided to dig up Eve's grave first. Zhou clearly didn't like digging up someone's ancestral grave. Grim Demon was afraid that Zhou would stop him, so he didn't inform Zhou. While Zhou wasn't paying attention, he dug directly. He pushed the tombstone away, revealing the sarcophagus below. Grim Demon decisively lifted the lid of the sarcophagus. Ah! Zhou was eavesdropping on the conversation between the elder and his friend when he suddenly heard Grim Demon's shout. He hurriedly turned his head and realized that Grim Demon had opened Eve's sarcophagus. At that moment, Grim Demon's expression was somewhat complicated. He stared intently at the sarcophagus as though he had seen something strange. What's inside? Zhou walked to Grim Demon's side and followed his gaze. When he saw what was inside the sarcophagus, he was immediately taken aback. There was no corpse inside the sarcophagus, not even a skeleton. There was only one thing inside. What's this? Why is there this? Zhou realized that inside the sarcophagus was a puppet that looked like a princess. This puppet was very big, almost the size of a real person. She wore a princess dress and was placed in the sarcophagus, looking like she was asleep. No one could answer him. Grim Demon was also confused. Guardians don't need graves. You should ask yourself under what circumstances would you place such a thing in your grave. Open Adam's tombstone and take a look, Zhou said to Grim Demon. Grim Demon pushed Adam's tombstone open and indeed, he saw the sarcophagus inside. When he opened the sarcophagus, there was indeed a puppet inside. However, this time it was a puppet that looked like a boy. He wore a tuxedo and looked very gentlemanly. These are clearly two puppets. There are no corpses inside. In other words, this place can't be Adam and Eve's grave, Grim Demon said. Zhou carefully scanned the sarcophagus with Truth Listener. Apart from the two puppets, he didn't discover anything. That's strange. If the real Adam and Eve didn't die of old age here, where did they go? Are the people in Regretless City their descendants? Zhou was filled with doubts. Grim Demon wanted to take out the two puppets to take a closer look, but no matter how hard he tried, the puppets inside remained motionless. There's something wrong with these two puppets. With my strength, it wouldn't be difficult to take them out even if they were made of gold, much less puppets. Ah! As Grim Demon spoke, he suddenly screamed and fell to the ground. Grim Demon, what's wrong? Zhou watched as Grim Demon collapsed beside the tombstone, motionless as though he was dead. He was immediately alarmed and didn't dare go over. All he did was shout Grim Demon's name. However, after shouting a few times, Grim Demon didn't respond at all. I've already said that digging up graves is inauspicious. It's very easy for something to happen, but you didn't listen. You insisted on digging. Zhou looked at the two puppets with an odd expression. He summoned the golden battle god and got them to restore the grave. Zhou didn't dare approach. After closing the coffin lid and pushing the grave back to its original spot, the golden battle god wasn't attacked, but Grim Demon remained motionless. It was useless no matter how Zhou shouted. Even if he electrocuted him or hit him with ice, there was no reaction. However, Grim Demon's vitality wasn't severed. It didn't seem like he was dead. After a while, Grim Demon crawled up in a daze. What happened just now? Grim Demon asked Zhou after he sobered up a little. I should be asking you that. Zhou recounted how he had suddenly fallen to the ground. After Grim Demon heard that, his expression turned nasty. How did this happen? I don't have any memories. Chapter 1534. It's best not to touch this thing. Zhou didn't wish to be nosy as he exhorted Grim Demon not to touch anything. Grim Demon still had a lingering fear. Even if he were to touch it again, he wouldn't dare do so. This place should be relatively safe. We'll stay here for a while. Go and find out what's on the other side of the mountain. Zhou got Grim Demon to scout for information while he gamed in the cemetery. With a large number of solid essence energy crystals feeding it, it wouldn't take long for Tyrant Behemoth to advance to the Calamity stage. After Grim Demon left, Zhou grinded the Dubhe Star Palace again and again. Although he still couldn't withstand the purple explosion of light, he gained a better understanding of the purple crystal armored creature's abilities. Unless the Chaos Egg can advance to the Calamity grade, it will be very difficult for it to withstand the power of the explosion of light. I have to think of other solutions. Zhou was thinking of a way to kill the purple crystal armored creature in a short period of time. In that case, it didn't matter even if the Chaos Egg couldn't last long. As he pondered, he moved the solid essence energy crystals into Tyrant Behemoth's mouth, but he suddenly couldn't move them. Before Zhou could figure out what was going on, the Chaos Egg exploded. Without entering the dungeon again, Zhou clicked open Tyrant Behemoth's information and realized that it had indeed entered an evolutionary state. Without a glutton like Tyrant Behemoth carrying it, there's no companion beast that can digest so many essence energy crystals. The Chaos Egg can last even shorter. It was a good thing for Tyrant Behemoth to evolve into a calamity, but before it successfully advanced, Zhou could only think of other solutions. Zhou looked at demonic neonate. She had been sleeping the entire time, looking like a normal person sleeping. There were no signs of a companion beast evolving, but he couldn't wake her up no matter how hard he tried. However, Grim Demon returned after a while. It was unknown what method he had used, but he had already figured out the situation here. The people of Regretless City didn't dare go too far from it. Their food was only some plants on the mountain. Some people had once gone into the mountain range, but most of them died inside. They didn't even know how they died. From the looks of it, there are terregrade creatures in the mountain range. They are only ordinary people, so they naturally can't see terregrade creatures. Grim Demon paused before continuing. However, someone once saw a terrifying scene in the mountain range. Countless snakes were swimming in the mountains. Among them, a scarlet snake was coiled on the mountain peak. Its body was even larger than the mountain peak. According to their descriptions, it looks like the snake that Satan transformed into when he tempted Adam and Eve. It's not easy to leave the mountain range. Even if we successfully leave, we might not be able to find the way back. Let's stay here for now. When baby wakes up, let's see if she has any way to take us back, Zhou said after some thought. This should have happened long ago. Grim Demon paused for a moment before saying, when I was reading the memories of the citizens, I also discovered something. Although this place is protected by the Lost Paradise, It's not in the Lost Paradise after all. Occasionally, dimensional creatures will come to the city and eat many people. It's probably because of those snakes. From the looks of it, this place isn't safe either. I hope Neonate can wake up as soon as possible. Zhouwen felt that demonic Neonate should have a way to take them back. After all, the Heaven Shrouding Bell was in demonic Neonate's hands. Previously, Ice Maiden had used the Heaven Shrouding Bell to travel through space and reach the buffer zone between Earth's universe and the dimension. Zhouwen continued gaming and grinding dungeons. Grim Demon couldn't even find someone to talk to as he was extremely anxious in the cemetery. In less than 2 days, Grim Demon couldn't help but tell Zhouwen that he wanted to explore the depths of the mountain range to see if there was any other way out. After Grim Demon left, Zhouwen continued grinding dungeons every day. This day, after killing the golden sniper again, he suddenly heard a ding. The sound was different from the usual sound of dimensional crystals dropping. It didn't sound like a companion egg. Reincarnation stone. Zhouwen was overjoyed when he saw what it was. After grinding for so long, this was the second Samsara stone. The previous one had been used by the great Mightvajra bull. Back then, Zhouwen didn't know what the Samsara stone was for and was only experimenting. Now, Zhouwen already knew that the Samsara stone could allow companion beasts that couldn't evolve to have evolvable stat. Furthermore, their stats might be strengthened to a certain extent, and they might even awaken some new skills. Zhouwen had many good companion beasts, but because they didn't have evolvable stats, their levels couldn't be raised. They couldn't satisfy Zhouwen's current needs. He couldn't bear to use such rare special pets for fusion. If they weren't suitable, it was useless to keep them. With the Samsara stone, those companion beasts could be saved. Let me see which companion beast should I use it on? There were quite a number of companion beasts that Zhouwen hoped to improve, but there was only one Samsara stone. He had to choose. The Death Reporting Crow's skill is actually very useful. If I use the Samsara stone on it, it might be able to evolve into a powerful companion beast. Medusa isn't bad either. It doesn't seem to be of much use now, but if it evolves, her skill might be especially powerful. There's also the ancient splitting tadpole. If it can evolve to the Calamity grade, I wonder how strong its splitting and explosion ability will be. Zhouwen tidied up his companion beasts and realized that there were too many companion beasts that needed the Samsara stone. He was momentarily at a loss. After some consideration, Zhouwen finally chose to give the Samsara stone to Dr. Darkness. Zhouwen actually liked Dr. Darkness's skills very much. Furthermore, he was in his soul form and could attach himself to Zhouwen. All his skills could be used by Zhouwen. However, his level was too low. It couldn't keep up with Zhouwen's current level and combat need. Furthermore, he didn't have any evolvable stats. Zhouwen had always wanted to raise his level. Then I'll use Dr. Darkness. Zhouwen summoned Dr. Darkness and gave him the Samsara stone. After using the Samsara stone, Dr. Darkness's body immediately underwent a magical change. Instead of calling it a change, it was better to call it a metamorphosis. The mythical Dr. Darkness rapidly metamorphosed, and before long, he became the most basic mortal stage. The mortal stage Dr. Darkness looked rather adorable. He was a beautiful boy who looked 5 or 6 years old. He didn't have any expression and was like a robot. He wore a black robe and didn't look like a doctor. Instead, he looked like a priest. He opened Dr. Darkness's stats and indeed, he had returned to the mortal stage. Dr. Darkness, mortal, evolvable, strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, 11 primordial energy, 11 talent skill, scalpel, fight poison with poison, light of penetration, killer Dr. Companion form, soul. Chapter 1535. The skills are all there. Furthermore, there's an additional skill, famous Dr. Killer. I wonder what it's used for. How can killing be related to medical skills? Zhou carefully read the introduction of Famous Dr. Killer. Famous Dr. Killer, kill one to save one. Save one to kill one. Zhou looked at it for a long time, but he didn't understand what the skill introduction meant. Could it be that, if I want to use Dr. Darkness to save people in the future, I have to kill someone first? Isn't that bullsh**t? Zhou felt that this skill definitely wasn't that simple. He wanted to test the consequences of saving people, but there wasn't anyone who needed Dr. Darkness to save. After all, Dr. Darkness mostly used fight poison with poison to save people. Zhou couldn't poison a person first, right? Now that he had companion beasts, raising their levels was still a problem. Previously, the great Might Vajra bull had returned to the mortal stage. All he needed to do was feed it some essence energy crystals to naturally raise it. Now, it had returned to the mythical stage, but it wasn't that easy to improve further. He temporarily didn't know how to advance to the Terragrade. Zhou tried feeding Dr. Darkness the essence energy crystals. Although it made Dr. Darkness grow a little, the growth wasn't fast. Furthermore, Dr. Darkness could only absorb a small portion of the essence energy crystals. It wasn't of much use, unlike Tyrant Behemoth that could eat it freely. From the looks of it, it's impossible to use essence energy crystals to evolve Dr. Darkness. Then, what does his evolution need? After some thought, Zhou felt that he should give it a try in a poisonous place. Dr. Darkness's skill was related to poison. Apart from that, Zhou couldn't think of any other way to evolve him. In the dungeons that Zhou had already downloaded, there were many poisonous insects and goo in the Valley of No Return. It was probably the most ideal place. Apart from that, there was also the poison Wyrm pool in Pool City. There was also poison there, so he could give it a try. After some consideration, Zhou chose the poison Wyrm pool. The water in the poison Wyrm pool was poisonous, so he used the poisonous water inside to test it. He brought Dr. Darkness to the poison Wyrm pool. Without waiting for Zhou to experiment, Dr. Darkness walked to the side of the poison Wyrm pool, took out a syringe, and drew a tube of poison. Then, he stabbed it into his vein and injected the poison. Soon, Zhou was surprised to discover that Dr. Darkness had advanced to the legendary stage and obtained his life providence again. His life providence was the same as before, golden left hand. If it's so easy to evolve, wouldn't a few more injections allow me to quickly advance to the mythical stage? However, after injecting one vial of poison, Dr. Darkness stopped moving. The poison Wyrm in the poison Wyrm pool was alarmed and instantly killed by Zhou. The dimensional creature that looked very powerful in the past felt too weak compared to the present Zhou. After confirming that Dr. Darkness no longer needed the poison here, Zhou had no choice but to take him to another dungeon. Zhou had circled the Zhuolu and Valley of No Return dungeons with poison. Every time Dr. Darkness saw a new poison, he would extract it and inject it into himself. He seemed to have a physique that allowed him to be immune to poison, or even stronger. Others were only immune to poison, but Dr. Darkness could use poison to strengthen his body. Some poisons could make Dr. Darkness evolve, while others didn't have much of a reaction. Furthermore, at the lower levels, he could advance by injecting a random poison. Later on, he had to inject several poisons before he could advance. After working for half a day, Dr. Darkness finally returned to the mythical stage. His life soul and wheel of destiny were the same as before. Zhou tried a few more poisons, but none of them could allow Dr. Darkness to continue evolving. Then, he temporarily couldn't find any new poisons, so he couldn't continue experimenting. From the looks of it, ordinary poisons shouldn't be able to make Dr. Darkness evolve to the Terragrade. I have to find some powerful poison elemental creatures and use their poison to make Dr. Darkness evolve. Zhou felt that if he could find a calamity-grade poison elemental creature, he should be able to advance Dr. Darkness to the Terragrade. Where can I find a calamity creature with poison? Zhouwen kept thinking of the one in the Zhuolu sapphire sky. However, that dimensional creature had always been in the sapphire, making it difficult to kill. Furthermore, he didn't know if it was considered poison. Zhouwen thought about all the dungeons again, but he couldn't think of a suitable place. Taking this opportunity, Zhouwen picked out his companion beasts. As low-level companion beasts were no longer of much use, a portion of them could be used as supplementary materials for fusion. As for the very special ones that Zhouwen found useful and wasn't willing to fuse, he had to think of a way to improve them. It would be best if they could be raised to the calamity grade. At the very least, they would be at the terror grade. Otherwise, they would be useless in the current battle. Dr. Darkness has to think of a way to advance. The Evil Spirit King has recently absorbed quite a number of terror grade creatures. He should be about to advance to the terror grade. Banana Fairy also has to improve further. Should the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General advance again? Zhouwen listed a few companion beasts that he thought highly of and immediately felt a headache coming on. There were too many companion beasts that needed to be advanced. Each of them had their own uniqueness, so he couldn't bear to use any of them as ingredients. What left Zhouwen most conflicted was the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. This companion beast was really strong, but he couldn't get rid of its Jinx's master skill. Zhouwen was a little afraid. With the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General and Bamboo Blade Companion Beast, the two Lord Nemesis Companion Beasts, Zhouwen was afraid that he wouldn't be able to withstand them if they advanced to the Calamity grade. However, the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General was really useful, especially in stellar-level dungeons. To the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General, it was equivalent to fighting on its home turf. In the past, there were definitely many stellar-level dimensional zones. It would be a waste to not use the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. I'll give it a try again. Bamboo Blade's Jinx's master ability is stronger than the Tiger Soul General's. There shouldn't be any problems. It shouldn't be a problem. Zhouwen hesitated for a while before deciding to advance the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. There were some dimensional zones that required the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General to lead the charge. Of course, the main reason was that it was very difficult for other companion beasts to advance. Even if Zhouwen wanted them to advance, he couldn't advance them immediately. However, the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General was different. If he used it for fusion, no matter how low the chances were, it wouldn't explode. In other words, as long as he fused with a Terra-grade companion beast, the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General had a chance of advancing to the Terra grade. By fusing with a Calamity-grade companion beast, the Tiger Soul General could quickly reach the Calamity grade. This ability was something other companion beasts didn't have. Bamboo Blade also had the Jinx's master attribute, but Zhouwen didn't know if it had this ability. Calamity-grade companion beasts were still useful, so Zhouwen couldn't bear to use them for fusion. All he could do was use a Terra-grade companion beast to raise the Tiger Soul General to the Terra grade. Which one should I use for fusion? Zhouwen looked at all the Terra-grade companion beasts he had. The least valuable Terra-grade companion beast was the Golden Battle God, but the Golden Battle God's skill wasn't suitable for the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. Chapter 1536. Zhouwen actually didn't have many Terra-grade companion beasts. The easiest to drop was the Golden Battle God. The other Terra-grade companion beasts were relatively difficult to drop. For example, Death Number 10, Limitless Demon Dragon King, Imprisoned Dragon, and Banana Fairy. Zhouwen couldn't bear to use them for fusion. As for the remaining Golden Battle God, Flame Monarch, and company, their skills didn't seem to match the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. After some selection, he didn't choose a suitable Terra-grade companion beast to fuse with the Fiend Armored Tiger Soul General. In terms of skill compatibility, Death Number 10, Imprisoned Dragon, and the Tiger Soul General are more compatible. However, these two companion beasts have their own characteristics. It's too wasteful to use them as materials for fusion. Zhou thought for a moment and still couldn't bear to part with them. In the end, he decided to fuse with the Golden Battle God. At most, he would exchange for some skills that weren't compatible with the Tiger Soul General. This shouldn't have much of an impact as long as he could advance the Tiger Soul General to the Terra grade. With this in mind, Zhou didn't hesitate any longer. He placed the Tiger Soul General in the fusion column and placed a Golden Battle God in as a material before clicking on fusion. With a flash of light, the Golden Battle God in the material column vanished. As for the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General, something abnormal happened. The Tiger Soul General, who was wearing purple armor, had a purple metallic texture. The armor wrapped around the Tiger Soul General and its mount more completely, making it look like a heavy-armored metal knight. These were only tiny changes. There wasn't much difference from before. The biggest change was the spear in the Tiger Soul General's hand. He originally held a spear in his hand. Although it was still a spear, the style was no longer the ancient one. It had become a very futuristic spear with an exaggerated shape. Zhou couldn't describe what the spear looked like, but it looked really beautiful. The spearhead was very three-dimensional and relatively wide. It didn't look like an ancient spear. There were some holes on it, but it was unknown what they were used for. Appearance wasn't important. Zhou only wanted to know if the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General had advanced to the Terra grade, and if its skills had been washed away. Fiend-armored Tiger Soul General, Terror, Evolvable, Life Providence, Fiendish Fiend Life Soul, Tiger Soul Runes Wheel of Destiny, Vicious and Evil Terror Form, Devil Knight as Strength, 82 Speed, 82 Constitution, 82 Essence Energy, 82 Innate Skills, Tempered Steel Furnace, Rampage, Magic Stone Curse, One with the Mount, Armor-Piercing Spear, Evil Deeds, Badlands, Jinx's Master, Shooting Crazily. Companion Form, None. After reading the Fiend-Armored Tiger Ghost General's information, Zhou was immediately overjoyed. Indeed, he had advanced to the Terra grade. Furthermore, his skills hadn't been washed away. All he had was an additional crazy shooting skill. The Tiger Soul General used an ancient spear, not a modern firearm. This crazy shooting was probably a useless skill that was useless against the Tiger Soul General. This was already the best outcome Zhou could think of. Having one more useless skill was better than having one less. Let's see what the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General looks like after its terror transformation. Zhou chose to enter the Yang City dungeon before summoning the Tiger Soul General and transforming it into terror form. The moment Tiger Soul General descended, Zhou felt like he wasn't playing a game, but watching a sci-fi blockbuster. The Tiger Soul General and its mount, which was completely wrapped in heavy metal armor, looked like a robot knight in a technological movie. The armor was dark purple, and the gaps shone with purple light. It was like purple light decorating the armor's lines. The Tiger Soul General's body was still burning with purple devil flames. The spear in its hand was also surging with purple flames, especially at the tip of the spear. The holes also spewed out purple light, making it look very technological. It looks good, but I wonder how strong its actual combat strength is. Let me see what you're capable of. Attack with all your might. Zhou ordered the Tiger Soul General to attack the Blood Bone Temples. The eyes of the Tiger Soul General and its mount lit up at the same time as they shimmered with purple flames. In the next second, the Tiger Soul General raised the spear in its hand. Something that left Zhou dumbfounded happened. The spear's holes spewed out continuous purple bullets of light that sprayed at the Blood Bone Temples like a storm. Bam! 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 This commotion was similar to the effect of a Gatling gun, but the might of the purple bullets of light was much more powerful than a Gatling gun's. After a series of explosions, many of the walls and doors of the Blood Bone Temples were riddled with bullet holes. Blood spirits rushed out of the Blood Bone Temples and pounced at the Tiger Soul General angrily. The Tiger Soul General continued shooting with its spear, blasting many of the blood spirits that charged at him. Holy sh*t, the Tiger Soul General has actually become a Mecha Knight? Zhou widened his mouth and muttered to himself in shock after a while. However, Zhou quickly realized that his thoughts were too simple and naive. When a blood spirit rushed close to the Tiger Soul General, the Tiger Soul General transformed into a spear and pierced through the blood spirit's chest, sending it flying into the sky. It sounded contradictory, but it was indeed the case. Not only could the spear be used as a real weapon, but it could also continue to be used as an ancient spear. Zhou watched the Tiger Soul General's performance from the side. The spear in his hand danced wildly from time to time and shot out angrily from time to time. He forcefully carved out a bloody path through the group of blood spirit. Unfortunately, there was no power of flames here to assist the Tiger Soul General. Otherwise, he would have been even stronger. Haha, this fusion is perfect. The Tiger Soul General can now engage in melee combat and long-range attack. Furthermore, it can shoot over a large area. It can't be any more perfect. Zhou was excited. He watched as the Tiger Soul General became stronger and stronger. The metal armor was like a huge furnace. The flames inside burned brighter and brighter as the Tiger Soul General became stronger and stronger. No matter how many blood spirits came out, they were mercilessly killed by the Tiger Soul General. When the Tiger Soul General rushed to the Kuei Cow, the Kuei Cow let out a thunderous cry. The Tiger Soul General actually withstood the sound wave attack and rushed in front of the Kuei Cow. It fought a crazy battle with it without being at a disadvantage. Awesome. This is only the result of constant battles. If he can fight in flames, he should be stronger. Zhou had the urge to immediately take the Tiger Soul General to a fire elemental dungeon to test it. The Tiger Soul General became stronger as it fought, but the Kuei Cow didn't have such an ability. It gradually fell into a disadvantage. More than 2 hours later, the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General managed to injure the Calamity-grade Kuei Cow with its Terra-grade body. It was on the verge of death before finally torturing it to death. Unfortunately, only the speed crystal dropped. Zhou fed it to his companion beast. Should I take the Tiger Soul General to the Dubhe Star dungeon to give it a try? Although Zhou felt that the Tiger Soul General probably couldn't withstand the burst of light, there was nothing to lose if it died in-game. He decided to give it a try. Chapter 1537. Zhou didn't know if the light explosion used by the Calamity creature on Dubhe was considered a high-temperature power that the Tiger Soul General could accept. Logically speaking, it was a power similar to high-temperature radiation. It should be within the range that the Tiger Soul General could absorb. If the Tiger Soul General couldn't absorb that power and convert it for its own use, it would probably die instantly if it relied on its own strength to withstand it. After all, even the dragon-imprisoned armor with absolute defense couldn't last long. Although the Tiger Soul General's defense was very strong, it was still inferior to the dragon-imprisoned absolute defense. After activating the Venus dungeon, Zhou summoned the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors according to his previous routine. He used the Chaos Egg as protection and wore the dragon-imprisoned armor inside. When the Chaos Egg exploded, he could still last a little longer. The difference this time was that Zhou had the Tiger Soul General standing beside him. The moment the door opened, the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors charged at the amethyst-armored creature. As for the amethyst-armored creature, it didn't hesitate to release a light explosion that was as ubiquitous as the sun. I hope the Tiger Soul General can last a little longer. Zhou didn't expect the Tiger Soul General to last as long as it could like the Chaos Egg. It was fine as long as it wasn't insta-killed. Zhou kept sensing the Tiger Soul General to see when he would be killed by the light explosion, but to his surprise, the Tiger Soul General wasn't killed even after waiting for a while. Instead, it was Zhou himself. Without Tyrant Behemoth as a trash can to transfer the solid crystals, the time the Chaos Egg could last was greatly reduced. When the Chaos Egg was destroyed and the game screen turned black, the Tiger Soul General still wasn't dead. From the looks of it, the Tiger Soul General can absorb the light explosion of the amethyst armored creature for its own use. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to last so long. Zhou was delighted and alarmed. For the Tiger Soul General to last for so long, it had definitely become very strong. Zhou didn't know the limit of the Tiger Soul General's strength. If it could become infinitely stronger, it would be too terrifying. It might even be able to defy the heavens and kill the dimensional creature on Dubhe. Of course, this was only Zhou Wen's beautiful wish. In fact, every skill had its limit. It was impossible for it to become infinitely stronger. The Tiger Soul General's body couldn't withstand such terrifying power. However, Zhou Wen didn't even have the chance to try and buy his dreams. This was because he couldn't last until the Tiger Soul General became stronger. Once Zhou Wen died, the game would end. The Tiger Soul General had no chance to become that strong. Zhou Wen suddenly realized that he was the one holding them back the most. No, I have to think of a way to live a little longer. It's fine if I can't fight, but I can't even preserve my life. This is a little too useless. Zhou Wen racked his brains to make himself stronger. It's impossible to last that long with just the Chaos Egg. Even when Tyrant Behemoth was still around, it could only last a little longer. It's meaningless. I have to last longer, Zhou Wen muttered to himself. The best solution he could think of was to advance the Chaos Egg to the Calamity grade. However, this was a dimension. Ignoring finding a suitable dimensional zone, there were no dimensional zones here. I can't go back now. What should I do? As Zhou Wen thought about it, his eyes suddenly lit up. I wonder if I can use the dungeon's power to advance to Calamity level in-game? He gave it a try the moment he thought of it. However, Zhou Wen didn't know which dungeons he had downloaded could be used to advance to the Calamity grade. Of course, Zhou Wen didn't know if game dungeons would work. He could only slowly experiment. Zhou Wen thought about the game dungeons he had and found that they corresponded to the essence energy art he cultivated. If there were similar systems, Zhou Wen would try his luck. The First Order of Chaos is a Western essence energy art, but I haven't downloaded many Western game dungeons. None of the existing ones seem to match it. If I had known this would happen, I would have logged more West District dungeons. It was too late for Zhou Wen to regret it now. Wait. Zhou Wen suddenly thought of a dimensional zone. It was Tiantian's cabin, also known as the Time Cabin. There were 4 rooms: past, present, future, and chaos. Zhou Wen wondered if it had anything to do with the First Order of Chaos, since it was named Chaos. But Tian is God, and the Time Cabin is a dimensional zone belonging to God. The First Order of Chaos is the essence energy art of Zeus. The two aren't of the same system. I wonder if they can be used. Zhou Wen decided to try his luck. In fact, Zhou Wen had already used the Chaos Egg to enter and exit the Time Cabin a long time ago. Only the Chaos Egg could withstand the Time Cabin's time powers. However, Zhou Wen hadn't thought about it back then, so he didn't pay attention to it. Under the Chaos Egg's protection, he entered the Time Cabin again. Nothing had changed here. Zhou Wen didn't dare enter the past and future cabins. He went to the Chaos Cabin to take a look, but he didn't discover anything. There weren't many things in the cabin to begin with. Zhou Wen touched them all, but he didn't feel anything abnormal. Is it because the Chaos Cabin's power doesn't match the First Order of Chaos, or can I advance to Calamity in-game? Zhou Wen couldn't determine which possibility it was. However, Zhou Wen was somewhat unwilling to return just like that. After some thought, Zhou Wen decided to head to the future cabin to take a look. The past cabin could return to the past, and the future cabin should be able to reach the future. However, there was nothing inside the future cabin. Zhou Wen had always been brooding over this matter. He didn't know what it meant. If it was the future of humanity, didn't that mean that humanity would perish in the future? Now that Zhou Wen was much stronger than before, he wanted to enter again to take a look. Perhaps he could see something. When he entered the future cabin again, the scene Zhou saw was the same as before. The phone screen was pitch black as though it had been switched off. Due to his experience, Zhou directly activated the ancient Sovereign Sutra and used the power of human sovereign to illuminate his surroundings. The ancient Sovereign Sutra was already at the calamity grade, so its energy was much stronger than before. In the past, Zhou could only illuminate a small area, but now, he could illuminate a distance of dozens of meters. However, the light couldn't illuminate the future cabin. What truly illuminated the darkness of the future cabin was the powerful vitality of the ancient Sovereign Sutra. The moment his surroundings were illuminated, Zhou immediately sized up his surroundings carefully. The scene he saw delighted him. This was because Zhou realized that this place didn't seem to be a completely empty world. There were still some objects beneath him, but Zhou couldn't tell what they were. Chapter 1538. As the ancient Sovereign Sutra's illumination range was limited, and the thing below was too huge, he could only see a portion of it. It was like a blind man groping an elephant. Zhou was unable to determine what it was based on what he could see. The part he could see was an uneven stone platform. It was filled with potholes as though it had been bombed by bombers. Zhou was just about to land and get closer to the stone to see what it was. Before Zhou could move, he realized that the stone platform below had moved. The stone platform was slowly flipping. Clearly, the stone platform below wasn't land, otherwise it wouldn't have flipped. As the stone flipped, Zhou gradually saw traces of artificial carvings. He realized that it seemed to be a huge statue. However, the parts that could be seen were limited, so he didn't know what the carvings were. When most of the stone flipped to the other side, Zhou was surprised to discover that it was a statue of a Buddha. This Buddha statue wasn't unfamiliar to Zhou at all. It was the largest Buddha statue in Dragon Gate Grotto. Zhou often went to Dragon Gate Grotto, so he naturally wasn't unfamiliar with this Buddha statue. However, half of the Buddha statue's body had been blasted apart. It was obvious that the Buddha statue was floating in the void. It was just floating there. How did this happen? Why did this Buddha statue become like this? Who shattered half of it? Is Dragon Gate Grotto still around? Zhou was alarmed. If this was the future of the world, didn't that mean that Luoyang was doomed? As Zhou was pondering over it, the phone screen suddenly went black. Zhou imagined that the human Emperor Sutra had failed, but after checking, he realized that the blood-colored avatar had died. He didn't even know how it had died, so all he could do was smile bitterly. Past, present, future, chaos, first order of chaos. Is there a connection between them? As Zhou thought about it, his eyes suddenly lit up. Right, the first order of chaos is chaos essence energy art. Chaos's position in that mythical system is probably about the same as the egg that trapped Pangu. If I treat it as chaos, then chaos doesn't have any concept of time or space. It shouldn't have a past, present, or future. Zhou kept thinking. While Zhou was in Regretless City, Earth wasn't very peaceful. Some creatures appeared on the Rubik's Cube. These creatures looked like dinosaurs from Earth. Some looked like Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, and pterosaurs. These creatures wanted to barge into the Dubhe dimensional zone, but they were all killed by the amethyst armored creature without exception. Even though they knew that the difference in strength was huge, there were still creatures charging in from time to time. Although none of these dinosaur-like creatures had cleared the stage, their appearance and explosive power had become a hot topic. Do you think those dinosaur-like guys came from Earth? I heard that the extinction of the dinosaurs was very strange. Could it be that they chose to leave Earth and develop themselves in space? I really can't say for sure. Anyway, I find it very strange that fear was completely extinct. Not a single one survived. From the perspective of probability, it's not fair. If those dinosaurs really came from Earth, Aren't they a little too strong? The body of a dinosaur is extremely tough. Whether or not dinosaur-like creatures came from Earth, the major media had expressed their opinions, and ordinary people also had their own opinions. However, no matter what kind of dinosaur they were, they eventually died in dungeons without exception. Just as the people were discussing, the Rubik's Cube screen lit up again. Another creature was challenging the dubhy-dimensional zone. When they saw the challenging creature clearly, they were surprised to realize that the creature wasn't the dinosaurs. It was a creature that looked like a human. His entire body was wrapped in armor, and it was impossible to see what he looked like inside. The black armor looked like it was made of pig iron. There was nothing special about it. Just like the Tyrannosaurus from before, the creature wrapped in armor arrived outside the Dubhy Palace. It pushed open the door and walked in. Boom! The amethyst-armored creature in the palace erupted with the purple flames that Zhou-Wen was more familiar with. Unlike the dinosaurs, the creature that came this time wasn't instantly killed. Amidst the terrifying purple explosion, it walked towards the amethyst-armored creature step by step. People quickly realized that it wasn't here to kill the amethyst-armored creature. Instead, it circled around the amethyst-armored creature and arrived at the back of the palace. There was a teleportation array there. The creature stood on the teleportation array before disappearing. The Rubik's Cube screen also turned to the rankings. A name appeared at first place. Fire-Armored God. Zhang Chuanxiu softly recited the two words as he frowned, as though he was thinking about something difficult. After this battle, people realized that if they wanted to pass through the palace, they just needed to reach the teleportation array. There was no need to kill the amethyst-armored creature. Even so, no one dared to attempt it. The explosion of light produced by the amethyst-armored creature was just too powerful. It wasn't that simple to pass through it. Zhou-Wen was studying how to kill the amethyst-armored creature, so he wasn't in the mood to look at the Rubik's Cube. Therefore, he didn't know that he didn't need to kill the amethyst-armored creature to clear the level. After the Fire-Armored God entered the rankings, the various families began a new round of tests. It was impossible for humans to kill the amethyst-armored creature, but it didn't seem impossible as long as they rushed over. People were searching for ways to withstand the explosion of light. The prices of light elemental and fire elemental defensive companion beasts had increased by countless times overnight. However, it was limited to high-level companion beasts. Low-level ones were useless. Some powerful factions began to deliberately head to fire elemental dimensional zones to hunt dimensional creatures. Some people also thought of the Sui Emperor tomb, but when they arrived, they realized that the tomb had already disappeared. While others were desperately searching for fire elemental companion beasts, Zhou-Wen's body was undergoing a strange change. At that moment, Zhou-Wen was standing in front of Tiantian's hut. He didn't enter the wooden hut. The first order of chaos circulated in his body as his hand pressed on the wooden sign with the words, Tiantian's hut. As the first order of chaos circulated, the words on the wooden sign slowly disappeared as though they were being sucked away by some force. When Zhou-Wen was studying the first order of chaos, he realized that the power of the time hut didn't come from the hut itself, but from these words. Chapter 1539. What are words? Zhou-Wen had been considering this problem. He had observed the time cabin for so long, but there was nothing abnormal about the things in the cabin that were enough to cause the first order of chaos to react. Only the words on the cabin were somewhat special. Sweet cabin. Past, present, future, chaos. Why did these words have special power? What was the root of this power? Why was this power related to the first order of chaos? When the chaos first opened and all things were born, what was the first order? While pondering over this problem, Zhou-Wen searched for some explanations regarding words on the internet. Most information said that words were a symbol. This explanation was naturally correct, but thinking deeper into it, words were actually a kind of coordinate. A single word represented a coordinate. 2 words were like the latitude and longitude of the Earth, which could be more accurately defined as a coordinate, and 3 words could be the length, width, and height of the three-dimensional world. It had a more accurate positioning. The more words there were, the more accurate the coordinates might be, and the higher the space-time dimension it represented might be. Writing was a very magical thing. Originally, no one knew what it was in this world. Everything was chaotic and unknown. Only with the creation of writing could most people recognize what it was. The use of words was to give everything, visible and invisible, a coordinate defined by humans. As long as these coordinates were mentioned, anyone who had learned words would know what they were. This was equivalent to giving the chaotic world an order. The world itself didn't need order because existence itself was order. The ones who needed order were humans. It was humans who needed to discover order, and words were the best carrier of human order. After Zhou figured this out, when he touched the wooden plaque with the words engraved on it, the first order of chaos automatically circulated. The words on the wooden plaque transformed into a strange force that flowed into his body and fused with the first order of chaos, causing it to undergo a shocking transformation. After Zhou absorbed the past, present, and future words, he vaguely felt that the first order of chaos was already on the verge of calamity transformation, but it was still one step short. Therefore, Zhou came to the door and tried to see if he could absorb the words, "sweet cabin." In the end, these words also had magical powers. However, Zhou found it somewhat odd. The power of the words, past, present, and future, clearly had traces of time and space. However, the power transmitted by the words, Tiantian's hut, didn't seem to have much to do with time and space. Just as Zhou was wondering what was going on, the Chaos Egg appeared and enveloped the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou and the blood-colored avatar were twins. Everything the blood-colored avatar felt was as though it was happening to Zhou. At that moment, he could clearly sense that the blood-colored avatar's body was undergoing a strange change. In the past, the Chaos Egg was a form of protection for Zhou. It was a hotbed that provided him with nutrients. However, as the blood-colored avatar's body changed, Zhou felt that the Chaos Egg had become his obstacle, or rather, shackles. It restrained his body, making him feel abnormally uncomfortable. It was like a person who had been locked in a small wardrobe for an entire night. His whole body had shrunk into a ball, and his knees had to reach his chest in order to squeeze in. After a night of torture, what this person wanted the most now was to get out. Zhou felt about the same. Now, he had the urge to break out of the Chaos Egg and rush out to breathe in fresh air. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Pengu's creation of the world allowed all living things to have life. Could it be that this Chaos Egg is also formed after destruction? Only after destroying it can it form the Calamity Domain? The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. Therefore, Zhou mustered all his strength to break out of the Chaos Egg's restraints. However, it was only now that Zhou clearly realized how terrifying the Chaos Egg's defense was. His physical strength and essence energy were already comparable to a human creature, but when such strength struck the Chaos Egg, it was difficult to leave any marks on it, much less break it. Zhou released his essence energy time and time again to strike the Chaos Egg, but he failed to shatter it. "Why do you have to be so tough? Aren't you just making things difficult for me?" Zhou didn't realize that if it wasn't for the Chaos Egg's powerful defense, he would have died several times over. However, the advantages of the Chaos Egg had become his greatest obstacle. The more Zhou liked the Chaos Egg's defense in the past, the more pain he felt now. If 10 times didn't work, he would try 100 times. If 100 times didn't work, he would try 1,000 times. If 1,000 times didn't work, he would try 10,000 times. However, even if Zhou didn't give up, the Chaos Egg had no intention of being broken. He couldn't even break the Chaos Egg's skin, much less break it. Zhou knew very well that perseverance was very important, but sometimes, perseverance was only useful if one had a brain. How can I break the chaos egg? I'm not the real Pangu. Even if I'm Pangu, I don't have that axe that can split the heavens and earth, right? Wait, where did Pangu's axe come from? Everything in the chaos has yet to be born, so there shouldn't be the concept of an axe. The so-called Pangu axe might not really be an axe. Perhaps the myths and legends have materialized some kind of power. Then, what is the power that can split the heavens and earth? Zhou pondered quietly. He didn't want to aimlessly do useless work. Since words are the carrier of human order, when words give an originally unknown definition to everything in the world, it's equivalent to splitting the heavens and earth. The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that he was right. Zhou wasn't wrong. The mistake was that he was from the East District. The culture he was familiar with was slightly different from the West District's chaos mythology. It couldn't be said that he was wrong. It was just that his understanding was different and the direction he took was also different. Originally, the Chaos Egg should have advanced to the Calamity Realm in another way, but Zhou had taken a completely different path. The West District's essence energy art had been given the East District's culture and spirit. Perhaps even the creator of the First Order of Chaos had never imagined that the First Order of Chaos could be understood in such a way. On the Chaos Egg, shimmering words gradually appeared. One horizontal, one vertical, one horizontal, one horizontal, one horizontal, and one horizontal stroke. Every time a shimmering word appeared, a portion of the Chaos Egg disintegrated and melted. As for the words, they vanished with the Chaos Egg. When the last Chaos Egg fragment melted, the blood-colored avatar's body was released. In the next second, the blood-colored avatar's light expanded as countless words spewed out of his body. Like a data stream, they circled around his body like building blocks, forming the Chaos Egg that enveloped Zhou Wen's body. Chapter 1540. It's done. Zhou Wen looked at the Chaos Egg outside him. Although it still looked like the Chaos Egg, it was actually completely different. The Chaos Egg in the past was a Chaos Egg and now, it was Zhou Wen's Calamity Domain. However, what left Zhou Wen slightly depressed was that this Calamity Domain was too small. Just like the Chaos Egg in the past, it could only accommodate him alone. He took out his phone and looked at the information. He realized that the First Order of Chaos had indeed reached the Calamity grade. Calamity Domain. First Order of Chaos. Zhou Wen recognized these words, but he didn't understand what the ability of the First Order of Chaos Calamity Domain, which had the same name as the Essence Energy Art, was. I'll give it a try. Zhou Wen activated the Big Dipper dungeon and entered the Dubhe Palace. The domain of the First Order of Chaos was also interesting. It was equivalent to a Chaos Egg. When he used it, he summoned the Chaos Egg. It looked no different from when he was at the Terra grade. A Chaos Egg still enveloped his body. It was impossible to tell that the Chaos Egg was formed from words. Ignoring everything else, its defense should be much stronger, right? Zhou Wen summoned the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and the Tiger Soul General, and got them to smash open the door to the Dubhe Palace. After the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors charged at the purple crystal armored creature, a terrifying purple explosion of light appeared. The Chaos Egg was struck by the explosion of light. Immediately, many solid essence energy crystals appeared. Just like before, they quickly filled the Chaos Egg's interior. It's no different from before. Zhou Wen was depressed. He only hoped that the Chaos Egg was tougher than before and wouldn't explode as quickly as before. Soon, Zhou Wen was certain that the Chaos Egg was much tougher than before after being strengthened by the Calamity Domain. The solid crystals inside were about to be compressed, but the Chaos Egg still didn't explode. Without the Chaos Egg exploding, Zhou Wen's body couldn't hold on any longer. His body was squeezed into the solid crystals and was about to be flattened. Previously, Zhou Wen hadn't thought of this problem. Now, he suddenly realized that it was useless for the Chaos Egg to become tough. His body couldn't withstand such compression. If the number of solid essence energy crystals continued increasing, he would definitely be squeezed to death. I'm probably the first person in this world to be squeezed to death by an essence energy crystal, right? People cry and shout, hoping to obtain some high-level primordial energy crystals, but they can't. Yet, I was squeezed to death because I had too many primordial energy crystals. This is ridiculous. If only I could exchange primordial energy crystals for shopping vouchers like in the real world. One voucher is equivalent to hundreds or thousands of primordial energy crystals. Unfortunately, primordial energy crystals aren't money or vouchers. They can't be stacked. As Zhou was thinking, he suddenly saw a bright light emit from the Chaos Egg. A word lit up inside. It was the word 1. When the word lit up, Zhou realized that all the crystals had the word 1. There's hope. If there's 1, there's 2. If there's 2, there's 3. Could it be? With a thought, Zhou saw a few words light up in the Chaos Egg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100,000, 10,000. The words representing numbers lit up one after another. When every number lit up, the primordial energy crystal in the Chaos Egg would undergo some changes. When the number in the primordial energy crystal became 2, the number of primordial energy crystals in the Chaos Egg suddenly decreased by half, instantly creating a lot of space. When it became 3, there were many fewer primordial energy crystals. The larger the number in the primordial energy crystal, the lesser the number of crystals. Holy sh*t, I can really stack numbers like money. Zhou was immediately excited. He picked up a crystal with the words 1000 inside and immediately felt that the primordial energy contained in the crystal was as terrifying as the energy in a nuclear reactor. Clearly, the primordial energy contained in this crystal was very likely as much as 1,000 crystals. Under such circumstances, doesn't that mean I don't have to worry about the Chaos Egg exploding? After all, I can keep stacking them. Even if there are 100 million primordial energy crystals, I can stack them into one. Zhou felt that everything was worth it. However, Zhou quickly realized that his thoughts were too optimistic. The numbers in the Chaos Egg only stopped at 10,000. There were no words like 100 million. The primordial energy crystals could only stack to 10,000 in the end. Zhou attempted to activate the other words, but it was useless. Apart from the words that represented numbers that Zhou saw, the other words couldn't be activated. However, even so, it was already of great help to Zhou. Just the space saved from 10,000 primordial energy crystals stacking into one was already a great help to Zhou. It prevented him from being squeezed to death by the primordial energy crystals. As such, Zhou realized that with the Chaos Egg's power, he could easily withstand the damage of the light explosion. Zhou sized up the situation outside from inside the Chaos Egg. All he could see was a dazzling purple light. He couldn't see anything else. He could only sense that the golden flood dragon scissors was fighting the purple crystal-armored creature inside. Occasionally, he could see golden light flashing amidst the purple light. It was likely the glow of the golden flood dragon scissors. As for the Tiger Soul General beside him, its aura grew stronger and stronger. It had already reached the calamity grade and was constantly growing stronger. This time, I should be able to know the limit of the Tiger Soul General, right? Zhou thought. After a while, Zhou realized that he could see a blob of purple flames where the Tiger Soul General was. The purple was somewhat different from the purple of the light explosion. As the blob of flames grew stronger, he could already tell that it was the outline of the Tiger Soul General. This strength should be stronger than the power of the light explosion, right? That's why the flames can be seen. Is the Tiger Soul General really that strong? It's only at the Terror grade, but it can withstand the power of a Calamity grade? Furthermore, it's not an ordinary Calamity grade. With a thought, Zhou Wen issued an order to the Tiger Soul General to help him attack the purple crystal armor relic. The Tiger Soul General charged forward without any hesitation, but due to the intense battle energy fluctuations inside, even with Truth Ear's power, it couldn't hear the exact situation. Bam! After a loud bang, Zhou Wen sensed that the Tiger Soul General's body flew out and slammed into the ground. It streaked far away and slammed into something before stopping. However, in the next second, the Tiger Soul General stood up again and charged in again. Again and again, the Tiger Soul General would quickly rush back in every time it fell out. Zhou Wen could clearly sense that the Tiger Soul General's aura was getting stronger. The Tiger Soul General is considered an oddity. It's clearly only at the Terra grade and doesn't even have a calamity domain, but it can rely on the combination of various skills to forcefully fight a powerful calamity creature. Zhou Wen felt that he needed to pay attention to skills. If he had the chance, he should learn more useful skills. Chapter 1541. Crack. With the sound of scissors opening and closing, Zhou Wen saw the explosion of light in the palace suddenly vanish. The world in front of him suddenly became clear. He saw the golden WYRM scissors floating in the hall. The Tiger Soul General, who was dressed in armor that resembled a burning crystal, was also standing in the hall. As for the amethyst-armored creature, it had already collapsed in the palace, its head separated from its body. His body quickly turned into purple light that dissipated. With a clanging sound, a few crystals fell to the ground. They were all high-level items with values exceeding 200. One of them was a skill crystal, but no companion egg drop. Killed Hell Creature, Starlord Greed. Discovered Dimensional Crystal. Zhou Wen picked up the skill crystal and took a look. The stat requirement wasn't high. 99 Constitution, Strength, Essence Energy, and Speed happened to be attainable by Zhou Wen. He needed a Light Elemental Essence Energy art. Zhou Wen could think of a solution for this. The only difficulty was that the requirement was 99 of the Light attribute. The Light attribute was a special stat, so the chances of it dropping weren't high. Zhou Wen hadn't downloaded a Light Elemental domain, so he hadn't dropped many Light Elemental crystals. The Light attribute was far from meeting the requirements. Just as Zhou Wen was feeling depressed, he suddenly realized that one of the dimensional crystals dropped by Starlord Greed was of the Light attribute. Without any hesitation, Zhou Wen absorbed the Light attribute crystal that was about to reach 300. In the end, Zhou Wen obtained 99 Light attribute points. As he hadn't advanced to the Calamity grade, this was already the stat limit of the Terror grade. No matter how high-level the stat crystal he absorbed was, it was impossible for him to continue improving. This really doesn't make sense. The stat limit of the mythical stage is 81, but the stat limit of the Terror grade is only 99. The difference is way too small. Zhou Wen found it somewhat odd. The difference between the other levels was huge. It was almost double, but the difference between the mythical and Terror grades was so small. He didn't know the reason. That was what he thought, but reality was like this. No matter how unreasonable it was, he couldn't change it. All he could do was adapt. Thankfully, 99 Light attribute points was enough to meet the requirement of absorbing the skill crystal. Now, all he lacked was the Terror transformation ability of the Light attribute. Among the essence energy arts I simulated, the only thing that can be related to light is the ancient Sovereign Sutra. That flame of life should be considered light, right? Zhou Wen wasn't sure. He switched his primordial energy art to the ancient Sovereign Sutra before picking up the skill crystal and attempting to absorb it. Immediately, a hot and numb force flowed out of the skill crystal and rushed into Zhou Wen's body, making his entire body feel like it was being roasted by a high temperature. Thankfully, they were in-game. If they were outside, Zhou Wen's clothes would probably have been burnt to ashes by the high temperatures. The terrifying energy brutally opened up a new primordial energy cycle in Zhou Wen's body. The terrifying heat and radiation energy made Zhou believe that the blood-colored avatar's body couldn't take it any longer. Thankfully, he managed to endure it in the end and absorb Star Monarch Greed's skill crystal. Absorbed Starlord Covetous Wolf Starlord Crystal. Attained Hell-Grade Essence Energy Skill Wolf Kiss. Wolf Kiss. Zhou felt the skill information from the primordial energy crystal as his expression turned odd. He opened the skill column to take a look. That's right, it was Wolf Kiss. Wolf's Kiss. Hell level. The Ravenous Wolf Star is the star of desire. The Ravenous Wolf's Kiss can shock heaven and earth. What the hell is this? Zhou was somewhat at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He originally imagined that with Star Monarch Greed's powerful abilities, any skill like light explosion, radiation, or high temperature would greatly increase the destructive power of Zhou skills. Who knew that it would be Wolf's Kiss? The skill introduction sounded very powerful, but when Zhou fought others, he couldn't just hug and kiss them, right? Thinking back to the scene, Zhou was fighting in Tianzhua. Seeing that he couldn't beat him, he could only use Wolf's Kiss, the only hell-level skill, to turn the tables. Then, Zhou took the opportunity to hug in Tianzhua's head and give him a wolf's kiss. It was simply unsightly. Zhou definitely didn't misunderstand how to use the skill. This was because the information the primordial energy crystal transmitted to his brain indicated that Wolf's Kiss was used in such a manner. How am I to use this skill? Zhou was so depressed that he nearly vomited blood. This skill wasn't suitable for men. If it was used on monsters, even if Zhou could kiss them, many monsters had extremely large mouths. Ignoring kissing them, if Zhou really leaned his head over, he would be adding food to them. Although he didn't know how powerful Wolf's Kiss was, Zhou was certain that he wouldn't use it casually. Just like how kowtowing could trigger the sigh of the king, Zhou knew that it was useful, but he really couldn't bring himself to do it. Most of the time, Zhou was too embarrassed to use that move. Wolf's Kiss was similar, but on second thought, Zhou felt that he could use it sometimes. After distributing the other stat crystals to the companion beasts he needed, Banana Fairy's stats were already maxed out. It was useless if she didn't level up. The soul reflection mirror was almost full. Raising his stats wasn't difficult for Zhou. What was difficult was raising his level. If Banana Fairy can advance to the Calamity grade, she might be able to extinguish the sun with a single Grand Wind. Why would I need to go through so much trouble? Zhou only had such a thought. To extinguish the sun, it was unknown if he could even do it at the Apocalypse grade, much less at the Calamity grade. After packing his things, Zhou circled the palace and realized that there was really only one hall in the palace. There were no other exits behind it, nor were there any other palaces. At the back of the palace there was a strange altar. There seemed to be some kind of ritual runes on it. Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to stand on it. The game immediately gave a notification. Do you want to teleport to the Jade Star Palace? Zhou immediately understood that the Big Dipper dungeon was indeed a chain dungeon. There was probably a dungeon above the Big Dipper. He had to clear all 7 dungeons before he could clear the Big Dipper dungeon. The first dungeon, Starlord Covetous Wolf, is already at the Hell stage. Typical dungeons get stronger the further one goes. I wonder how strong the dimensional creatures in the next 6 dungeons will be. Zhou thought for a moment and chose no. He wanted to see what would happen if he chose no. System notification. Do you want to teleport out of the Dubhe Palace? Zhou immediately chose yes to see where he could teleport to. The teleportation array flashed as the scene in front of Zhou changed. There were dazzling flames everywhere. Zhou sized up his surroundings and realized that he was in the periphery of the Dubhe Palace. There's a way back. Zhou was overjoyed. Good night. End of chapter. Chapter 1542. Since the 7 Big Dipper dungeons were separated, he could freely choose to head to the next Star Palace or exit after clearing the Dubhe Star. Zhou's chance had come. All he needed to do was use the magic cube to enter the Dubhe Star Palace, penetrate it in reality, and teleport out to return to Earth. From the looks of it, this was the only way to return to Earth before demonic Neonate woke up. Penetrating the Dubhe Star Palace and killing Star-Lord Covetous Wolf wasn't difficult for Zhou. What was more troublesome was what about demonic Neonate and Grim Demon. Furthermore, he needed to find 3 people to board the magic cube with him before he could activate it to enter the Dubhe Star Palace. Demonic Neonate was still sleeping without any signs of waking up. Furthermore, he couldn't retrieve her. He couldn't even send her into the chaos space. It wasn't impossible to carry her through the Dubhe Star Palace, but it would be broadcasted by the magic cube. Many people would see demonic Neonate. This wasn't what Zhou wanted. The most troublesome thing was to find 3 people to enter the Dubhe Star Palace with him. And the 3 of them were almost certain to die. Although there were many people in Regretless City, and it wasn't difficult to find 3 people to send themselves to their deaths, Zhou wasn't that kind of person. He really couldn't force people who had no grudges with him to send themselves to their death. I'll wait another 2 days and see what happens. It's best if demonic Neonate wakes up. If she doesn't wake up, I can only use the magic cube to return. Zhou opened the Big Dipper dungeon again. He entered the Dubhe Star Palace again. At this moment, Star-Lord Covetous Wolf wasn't presiding over it. From the looks of it, it hadn't respawned yet. Zhou arrived at the teleportation array and chose to enter the next Jade Star Palace. Jade was the 2nd star of the Big Dipper. The pivot represented the heavens and the jade represented the earth. Jade was also known as Gigantic Gate. According to what Zhou knew, although Jade was several times bigger than the Sun, there didn't seem to be any planets near it. There was only a relatively cold ring of dust. When the teleportation array activated, the scene in front of Zhou changed. When he regained his vision, he realized that a huge door had appeared in front of him. The door's shape resembled a triumphal arch, but it was even more majestic. It was probably more than 1,000 meters tall, and it was carved from golden crystals. Standing in front of the majestic door, Zhou couldn't help but feel as tiny as an ant. And this was just the entrance to the Jade Star Palace. It was even more difficult to imagine how big the entire Star Palace was. The Jade Star Palace had a door but no panels. Zhou stood on the steps outside the door and could see some of the sights inside the Star Palace. The interior of the Star Palace was also huge, and it was more than enough to fly a helicopter. There were dazzling crystal pillars and walls everywhere. Different from the simplicity of the Dubhe Star Palace, this Star Palace was extremely luxurious, with all sorts of engravings on it. At the very back of the Star Palace, there was a huge crystal throne. A giant wearing golden crystal armor was sitting on the crystal throne. He supported his chin with one hand as if he was thinking about something. What a tall giant. Just sitting there, it looks like it's 100 to 200 meters tall. Zhou roughly guessed what dimensional creature it was from the person's appearance. Since the guardian of the Dubhe Star was the greedy wolf Star-Lord, this person should undoubtedly be the Giant Gate Star-Lord. Just as Zhou was pondering over it, Giant Gate Star-Lord opened his eyes. His eyes, which were much larger than car wheels, emitted a terrifying golden glow. He stared at the spot where the blood-colored avatar was standing and slowly stood up. Zhou had never seen a dimensional creature's aura as terrifying as Giant Gate Star-Lord's. Perhaps there were other creatures stronger than Giant Gate Star-Lord, but in terms of spirit, they might not be able to suppress him. Looking at Giant Gate, Zhou couldn't help but think of the words indomitable spirit. Zhou was already prepared to fight a tough battle. From the size of Giant Gate Star-Lord's body, he knew that his body was definitely extremely powerful and his strength was extremely violent. The Chaos Egg could withstand the burst of light because it was an area of effect attack. Its strength was greatly dispersed, and Zhou wasn't sure if the Chaos Egg could withstand a strength-type dimensional creature like Giant Gate Star-Lord. If I really can't withstand it, I can only place my hopes on my dodging ability. Unfortunately, I've given my heavenly robe and lucky equipment to Wang Lu. Otherwise, it wouldn't be difficult for me to dodge Giant Gate's Star-Lord's attack. Zhou was still thinking of a countermeasure when he suddenly saw Giant Gate open his mouth. In the next instant, a terrifying roar burst out of Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate's mouth, forming a sonic boom that instantly struck Zhou. Zhou never expected such a move. He had always believed that Giant Gate was a strength type, so he never expected him to have a sonic attack. Thankfully, Zhou reacted quickly enough. He had already summoned the Chaos Egg to protect himself. When the sonic boom struck the Chaos Egg, it immediately produced a large number of solid essence energy crystals. The number was about the same as the number produced by Starlord Greedy Wolf's attack. From the looks of it, Giant Gate should also be at the Hell stage. That's good. Zhou felt relieved. In the Big Dipper dungeon, if one star palace was stronger than the other, it was unimaginable how strong the guardian in the final star palace would be. It was impossible to clear it. Giant Gate wasn't much stronger than Starlord Greedy Wolf. This gave Zhou hope. Perhaps the 7 star lords of the Big Dipper were at the Hell stage. Then, he still had a chance of clearing the Big Dipper. Although his strength was about the same as Starlord Greedy Wolf's, his abilities were completely different. Giant Gate's Sonic Boom attack and Starlord Greedy Wolf's Light Blast were two completely different systems. Zhou relied on the Chaos Egg to take the hit. At the same time, he summoned the Golden WYRM Scissors and ordered them to attack Giant Gate. However, not long after the Golden WYRM Scissors flew out, its speed became slower and slower. Before it reached Giant Gate, the Golden WYRM Scissors stopped. It can't be? Is Giant Gate's Sonic Boom so powerful that even the Golden WRM Scissors attack can't completely tear through it? Zhou was alarmed. However, what happened next left him even more incredulous. The Golden WRM Scissors actually flew back and aggressively chained at the Chaos Egg. The Chaos Egg had no chance of dodging the Sonic Boom. As for the Golden WYRM Scissors' destructive power, even the Chaos Egg couldn't completely withstand it. A hole was torn open. The sonic boom rushed in through the hole before the phone screen went black. What's going on? Why did the Golden WRM Scissors suddenly turn on me? Zhou hurriedly checked the Golden WRM Scissors information and realized that it was still intact. It was still his companion beast, and there was nothing wrong with it. However, he couldn't figure out why the Golden WRM Scissors had suddenly lost control and attacked him. Chapter 1543. Based on Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate's build, he's not a strength type, but a sound type ability. This is really unexpected, Zhou thought to himself. Furthermore, the center represents the sky, the jade represents the earth, and the Alioth represents sound. Why is Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate a sound-type dimensional creature? Zhou couldn't figure out this problem, but he was certain that just the vibrations of the sound waves weren't enough to make the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors attack its owner. There had to be some other power at work. Zhou entered the dungeon a few more times and quickly figured out what was going on. Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate's Sound Howl was indeed a sound-type ability. Furthermore, this sound-type power wasn't just a simple vibrational attack. It also had powers similar to charm. That power was useless against Zhou, who was wearing the Truth Listener earring. However, the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and other companion beasts seemed unable to withstand the invasion of that power. As long as they were too far away from Zhou, they would easily betray him. This left Zhou depressed. His own strength wasn't enough to fight Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate. Now, he was relying on his companion beasts to keep up appearances. Now, companion beasts would betray him if they were too far away from him. This was a serious problem. From the looks of it, I have to grind a few more times to see if Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate has any other weaknesses. Zhou repeatedly grinded the Jade Star Palace. Although he was killed by Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate every time, he still enjoyed it. While Zhou was studying Stellar Lord Mammoth Gate, the various factions on Earth were still working hard to enter the Dubhe Star Palace alive. Fire elemental dimensional creatures were repeatedly slaughtered by the various factions. The price of high-level fire elemental defensive companion beasts was already ridiculously high. Just as the various factions were collecting fire elemental defensive equipment, the Rubik's Cube screen moved again. Someone had barged into the Dubhe Star Palace, and it was a human. It was a young man in gorgeous armor who looked to be in his 20s or 30s. Human? How did he enter? He can actually withstand such high temperatures? No one knew who the young man was as they whispered. Strange. Didn't they say that only 4 people can enter? Why is he alone? What's the point of entering? Under that kind of light explosion, even those dinosaurs with incomparably strong physiques would find it hard to resist. If he were to go in, he would definitely die. Looks like he's a death warrior of some faction that's used to scout the path? Death warriors, no doubt. What a pity. He was so handsome, but he died just like that. The women's focus was different from the men's. What a sin. I wonder which family sent such a young man to his death. The handsome young man couldn't hear the people's comments. Even if he could, he wouldn't care. Step by step, he walked towards the gate of the Dubhe Star Palace. He stretched out his flawless hands that were even more beautiful than a woman's and pushed open the gate of the Dubhe Star Palace. Seeing Star Lord Greed in the Star Palace, the young man walked in without hesitation. When Star Lord Greed saw someone enter the Star Palace, he did not say a word before unleashing a terrifying explosion of light. The entire Star Palace and the plaza outside were instantly enveloped by the power of the purple light explosion. There was not a single blind spot. The live broadcast from the Rubik's Cube had been processed by the Rubik's Cube. Even an ordinary person could see the figure of a young man in the explosion of light. Everyone believed that he was dead for sure, but the young man didn't reveal the fear and horror they had imagined in the explosion of light. The explosion of light didn't reduce his body to ashes. It didn't even injure his hair. The armor on the young man's body emitted a dazzling glow that was even more dazzling than the explosion of light. It was as though the sun had enveloped him. How is this possible? Under such high temperatures and radiation. He's actually fine. Is he still human? When did such a young expert appear among us humans? He can't be the human emperor, can he? Ordinary people discussed as they guessed the origins of the young man. As for factions like the 6 families, they had already seen through the young man's origins. Holy body of the sun. That young man should come from the Holy Land's Holy Sun Temple. I never expected the Holy Land to take action so quickly, Zhang Chuanxiu muttered to himself. Doesn't the family clan of gods also have the holy body of the sun? Why isn't he from the family clan of gods? Zhang Yuji was also watching the live broadcast and asked in puzzlement. The family clan of gods does indeed have the holy body of the sun passed down from the Holy Sun Temple, but the family clan of gods doesn't have the armor on him. If I'm not wrong, that armor should be a manifestation of a guardian. Furthermore, it possesses extremely pure power of the sun, even purer than the power of the sun of the holy body of the sun. I'm afraid only those fellows from the Holy Sun Temple can create such a guardian. The family clan of gods doesn't have one, Zhang Chuanxiu said. The armor on the saint from the Holy Sun Temple emitted the sun divine light. The power of the explosion of light was actually absorbed by his armor. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the saint walked into the teleportation array and teleported away from the Dubhe Star Palace. Soon, the Rubik's Cube screen switched to the rankings. There was an additional name on the rankings. Furthermore, it was ranked in front of Fire-Armored God, snatching first place. Saint Nine Sons. It's indeed a fellow from the Holy Sun Temple, Xia Luchuan said with a frown. Upon seeing this name, people realized that the young man was a saint from the Holy Land. The Holy Land is indeed powerful. Any random saint can charge up the rankings. Humans really have to rely on guardians. That depends on who it is. Human Emperor, don't need a guardian. Human Emperor probably can't enter. Otherwise, why hasn't he appeared? Aren't you curious as to why 9 suns can enter the dimensional zone alone? No one answered his question. Some people thought of a possibility, but the possibility was too cruel. They couldn't say it out loud even though they had such thoughts in their hearts. Not only had a human passed the Dubhi Star Palace, but he had also suppressed fire-armored God and obtained first place. Instantly, he was in the limelight. The entire alliance was discussing 9 suns. Only a saint from the Holy Sun Temple can pass the Dubhi Star Palace so easily, right? 9 suns is just too cool. I'm afraid he's another human emperor-level expert. Most people weren't stingy with their praises. Even Professor Gu, who had always been pessimistic, said on the program that the Dubhi Star Palace was a dimensional zone tailor-made for Saint 9 suns. It was unlikely that anyone among humans could reach the level of 9 suns. If nothing unexpected happened, 9 suns might very well obtain first place on the Rubik's Cube rankings. Chapter 1544. 9 Yang, well done. Xiao looked at 9 Yang, who had walked out of the cube, and greeted him with a smile. There's nothing to be proud of. Wearing this Holy Sun armor, even a pig can do those things, 9 Yang said coldly. You can't say that. There are so many saints in the Sun Holy Temple. Only you were chosen to possess it. That's your strength, Xiao said. 9 Yang's expression didn't change. There's nothing to be happy about. My opponents aren't them to begin with. I only want to defeat Human Emperor. Do you think Human Emperor will appear this time? Probably. Since he claims to be Human Emperor, he probably won't sit back and watch us obtain the Dubhi Companion Beast, right? Xiao said. That's good. With that said, 9 Yang turned around and left, ignoring Xiao. Xiao sighed softly as he watched 9 Yang walk away. He muttered to himself, I hope that fellow doesn't go. 9 Yang and the guardian on him are invincible existences in a place like Dubhi Star. Zhou Wen, who was grinding dungeons, suddenly sneezed. He wiped his nose and muttered to himself, It's probably because Ye misses me. It's been so long since I've returned to see her. I wonder how Ye is now. Zhou Wen hadn't found a way to kill Stellar Lord Giant Gate. Just as he was about to continue grinding, he heard tragic cries and shouts coming from the city. What's that? Zhou Wen shifted his attention slightly and immediately realized that there was a blood-red snake in Regretless City. It was scuttling on the streets and roofs. It opened its mouth and swallowed a human. Are these the devil snakes they were talking about? Zhou Wen immediately thought of the information Grim Demon had previously obtained. As the snake was at the terror grade, the humans in Regretless City couldn't see it at all after its terror transformation. They could only be devoured. Many people knelt on the ground and prayed loudly to the Demon King instead of God. When Zhou Wen saw that the snake still wanted to swallow him, he teleported and summoned the golden WYRM scissors. He cut the snake into 2 with 1 slash. Plop, plop. After the snake died, its body exited its terror form and fell to the ground. Large amounts of snake blood dyed the nearby streets red as though it had just rained blood. Lord Demon King, long live! When people saw the snake corpse and Zhou Wen floating in midair, they immediately knelt down and kowtowed to him like devout believers, thanking him for saving their lives. They seemed to believe that Zhou Wen was the Demon King of Lost Paradise. Zhou Wen didn't wish to explain as he searched the snake corpse and found an essence energy crystal. There are also essence energy crystals in the bodies of dimensional creatures? Then, will there be a companion egg? Zhou Wen suddenly had the urge to see if he could find companion eggs if he killed all the big-shot creatures in the dimension. Zhou Wen only had this thought. At the very least, he wasn't in the mood to experiment. Only after returning to the graveyard did the humans dare to get up from the ground. They looked at each other with complicated expressions. Not long after Zhou returned to the cemetery, he saw Grim Demon fly back before he could even take out his phone. What happened? Zhou sized up Grim Demon and realized that he was injured in many places. He couldn't help but ask with a frown. I'm fine. That snake didn't take advantage of me either. Grim Demon recounted his experience. In the mountain range behind Regretless City there were indeed red snakes. Furthermore, there were quite a number of them. Grim Demon wanted to go further to take a look, but after circling around a few times, he was still discovered by the red snakes. Ordinary red snakes were naturally no match for Grim Demon. Even many Terrorgrade red snakes had been killed by Grim Demon. However, when the Calamity-grade red snake appeared, Grim Demon had no choice but to flee. These red snakes are extraordinary. They must be related to the legendary Satan. Their bodies are much stronger than ordinary creatures of the same level, Grim Demon said. Just as Zhou was about to say something, he suddenly realized that the elder had brought a few people to the entrance of the cemetery. Your Excellency, I seek an audience, the elder said respectfully after knocking on the door. What are you doing here? Zhou walked to the door, opened it, and asked the elder. The elder hurriedly knelt and kowtowed with the humans beside him. After bowing, he pointed at the two girls beside him and said, Your Excellency, these are the most beautiful girls in our city. I hope you like them. What do you mean? Zhou looked at the two girls beside the elder. They looked 17 or 18 years old and were extremely beautiful. They had a high nose bridge, deep eye sockets, and large eyes. They looked like typical people from the West District. She had a head of reddish-brown hair, which gave her a different kind of charm. What was even more shocking was that the two girls looked exactly the same. They were a pair of twins. Your Excellency, you have protected our regretless city for so many years, preventing us from being persecuted by the creatures of the outside world. Now we just want to repay you. Your Excellency, you didn't bring your maidservants with you, so there must be many inconveniences. If there's anything you need, just instruct them. The elder said. There's no need. Zhou rejected him immediately. What era was it? Humans weren't inferior to anyone, so there was no need to kneel to others. Zhou originally imagined that the two girls would be happy that they didn't need to serve him, but to his surprise, the two girls' faces turned pale when they heard Zhou rejection. One of the girls rushed forward and hugged Zhou's calf. Your Majesty, please let us follow you. We'll be your slaves. You can leave anything to us. Even if you want us to die, we'll be willing. If you don't like us, take our lives. We are willing to give up everything for you. Zhou was rendered speechless as he looked at the sincere girls who looked like crazy fangirls. Looking at the determined eyes of the two girls, it was as if they would immediately commit suicide if Zhou didn't let them stay. Leave the two of them behind. You can leave, Zhou said to the elder. Your Excellency, have a good rest. I won't disturb you any longer. Only then did the elder feel relieved. He didn't dare look up as he bowed his head and left the cemetery, closing the door. What are your names? Zhou asked as he sized up the two girls. I'm Liz. She's my sister, Liam, the girl who had been hugging Zhou's leg said as she pointed at her sister. What do you know how to do? Zhou asked again. As long as you instruct us, Your Excellency, we can do anything, Liz and Liam said with their heads lowered. Their cheeks were still unusually red. Chapter 1545. You can do anything? Zhou sized up Liz and Lim and asked thoughtfully. Liz and Lim trembled as their faces turned even redder. Their bodies trembled as they lowered their heads and said, It's our honor to be able to sacrifice ourselves for His Majesty. Before the two of them came, the city lord had already instructed them many things. It was precisely because of the many instructions that they had so many thoughts. His Majesty is the King of the Lost Paradise. If we can give birth to His Majesty's children, we will be able to break through the shackles of the human body and allow our descendants to reach the mythical stage. They will be able to fight those god-fiends and will no longer be pure meat. Whether our race can control its fate in our own hands in the future will depend on you. Thinking of the City Lord's heavy tone, Liz and Lim couldn't help but grit their teeth. Although they were still afraid, they still puffed out their chests and fearfully showed their beautiful side to Zhou. "If I asked you to die, would you be willing?" Zhou asked. He could only return with the help of the Rubik's Cube, but he needed 4 people to enter it. Zhou needed 3 more people, and he was worried that he couldn't find anyone. When Liz and Lim heard that, tears welled up in their eyes as they were extremely afraid. His Majesty is an omniscient existence. How can our schemes deceive him? His Majesty, we were wrong. It's all our fault. It has nothing to do with our clansmen. If you want to punish us, punish us. It's fine even if you want our lives, Liz and Lim said as they knelt on the ground, trembling. What did you do wrong? Zhou asked. We shouldn't have wanted. Liz said a few things, but she couldn't say them. Wanted what? Zhou asked with a frown. He thought that the people of Regretless City wanted to secretly harm him. Zhou was clearly overthinking things. The people of Regretless City revered the Demon King like a god, so how could they dare to harm him? We shouldn't have wanted to borrow your seed, Lim said through gritted teeth. Thankfully, Zhou hadn't drunk any water, otherwise he would have choked to death. He widened his eyes as he looked at the kneeling Liz and Lim, unable to believe his ears. Zhou even thought that he had heard wrongly. He wanted them to repeat it, but on second thought, it was impossible for him to have heard wrongly. It was useless to repeat it again. It would only make him more embarrassed. Since you know you're in the wrong, tell me. How should I punish you? Zhou deliberately asked coldly. Your Majesty, please forgive our clansmen. We're willing to commit suicide. Liz and Lim's expressions were filled with determination. They took out their short swords and were about to end their lives. Did I say I wanted you to die? Zhou's indifferent voice sounded. Liz and Liam looked at Zhou in bewilderment, unsure of what he meant. Now they only felt that this Demon King was temperamental. They simply couldn't use human thinking to understand his behavior, and their hearts became more and more fearful. From now on, your lives no longer belong to you, Zhou said to them. Yes, our lives belong to you, Your Majesty. Liz and Lim immediately knelt down. Get up. Prepare some food and clean up this place. Zhou kept them alive because he wanted to use them when he entered the Rubik's Cube in the future. He didn't need them for the time being. However, Zhou was very curious about what they ate. It was a good opportunity to try it. Liz and Lim felt as though they had been pardoned as they left the cemetery gratefully. When they returned and told the City Lord about the matter, the City Lord and the others turned pale from fright and nearly peed their pants. They only calmed down when they heard the end. Your Majesty is indeed an omniscient existence. How can you not know my schemes? I nearly harmed the entire city. Thankfully, Your Majesty gave us a chance. Liz, Lim, prepare the best food in our city. No matter what, we have to satisfy Your Majesty. After the elder said that, he felt worried. He personally made the preparations and did the best in all the details. Finally, he handed the finished product to Liz and Lim and got them to send the food into the cemetery. Zhou was grinding when he saw each of them carry a basin in. The basin was filled with clear water, and there were a few crystalline green leaves soaking in the water. Your Majesty, please have your meal. Liz and Lim knelt in front of Zhou and raised the 2 basins above their heads. Are these leaves delicious? Zhou was puzzled, but he still reached out to take a leaf and placed it in his mouth. He took a bite. With just one bite, Zhou frowned. Although the leaves didn't taste bad, they definitely weren't delicious either. They tasted about the same as the lettuce leaves on Earth. Zhou didn't like Western food, nor did he like raw lettuce. He looked at the two sisters and asked, "Do you usually eat this?" "Your Majesty, this is the precious leaf of emerald grass. It's a very rare and delicious food. It's very rare to find it, and it's impossible for ordinary people to eat it. Only during celebrations and sacrifices will everyone share a little," Liz answered. "Then what do you usually eat?" Zhou asked again. "Usually we eat the roots of stone grass," Liz answered. "Go get some of the roots of stone grass." Zhou couldn't imagine that such leaves that resembled lettuce would be a precious food in their mouths. How terrible would the food they usually ate be? The two sisters were terrified, thinking that Zhou wasn't satisfied with their hospitality and wanted to beg for mercy. Zhou repeatedly said that he didn't blame them and got them to bring the roots of the stone grass over. Only then did they leave in doubt. When they brought the roots of the stone grass over, Zhou took a look. It looked pretty good. The roots were jade white and as thick as a finger. The segments were rather beautiful. However, when Zhou bit it, he immediately felt a bitter juice flow into his mouth. "Is this thing for humans to eat?" Zhou suspected that the people of Regretless City were messing with him. How could something that was even more bitter than bitter gourd be food they usually ate? However, Zhou used Truth Listener to scan it and knew that they weren't lying. Most people in Regretless City who were eating were like this. Looking at the trembling sisters, Zhou sighed inwardly. These people in Regretless City are even more miserable than the people on Earth. On Earth, humans had stood at the top of the food chain for thousands of years. At the very least, they had enjoyed it. However, these people were at the bottom of the food chain in the dimension. Ignoring enjoyment, it was impossible for them to even eat meat. Any dimensional creature was at the mythical stage. Who could they kill? "This is for you." Zhou took out 2 pieces of bread and threw them at the sisters. Chapter 1546. Liz and Lim caught the bread and looked at Zhou in fear and trepidation. They didn't know what Zhou had given them. Under Zhou's signal, they realized that it was food. When they took a bite, their eyes widened as their beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. "Your Majesty, you're too kind to us. This is food for godfiends, right? You actually gave us food for godfiends. Even if we die, we won't be able to repay your grace." Liz and Lim were so touched that tears almost flowed out of their eyes as they thanked him profusely. "How pitiful. You're so touched by eating bread. If I were to give you 2 meat buns, wouldn't your entire family be moved to become slaves?" Zhou thought. "After you finish eating, clean the cemetery." Zhou returned to the rocking chair he had taken out and lay down to continue grinding. He wanted to give it a try and see if there was a way to bring them out alive. These people were all people with bitter lives. Zhou really couldn't bear to use their lives to exchange for a chance to return home. "Master, we'll go now." Zhou didn't notice that the way Liz and Lim addressed him was a little different. They couldn't bear to eat the bread at all. They put it away carefully and began cleaning the cemetery. From time to time, they would peek at Zhou, who was playing games on the rocking chair. To them, everything about Zhou was novel and mysterious. They really haven't seen the world. They actually sold their lives for 2 pieces of bread. "What a joke," Grim Demon said with a twitch of his lips. "There's nothing funny about it. It's the same for you guardians, much less them," Zhou said. "Nonsense. How can I be the same as them?" Grim Demon was immediately unhappy. How is it different? To them, bread is something they have never had before, so they will be touched. To you, those rare items that can enhance your strength won't make you risk your life. In essence, they are just rare items. "There's no difference," Zhou said. "How can it be the same? It's completely different, alright?" Grim Demon retorted. "Then tell me, what's the difference?" Zhou asked. "There are many differences. The value of the items is different, and their effects are different," Grim Demon retorted. Zhou ignored Grim Demon and lay there, minding his own business. "Why aren't you talking? Since I can't win an argument, I'll play dead, right?" Say something. Grim Demon circled Zhou, but Zhou ignored him. He flew into a rage. Zhou ignored him completely, treating him as air. Grim Demon had spoken angrily all day. If it wasn't for the fact that he felt that he couldn't defeat Zhou, he would have long slapped him. Suddenly, Zhou frowned and looked up at the sky above Mountain City. You bugs, you actually dared to kill the living beings of my race. Originally, I wanted to rear you as food. Now that you're courting death, all of you can go and die. A sharp and strange eunuch's voice rang out. On the mountain peak behind Regretless City, there was a huge scarlet snake with its body coiled around the mountain. The huge snake head was suspended above Regretless City, flicking its tongue from time to time. That snake was really huge and powerless. Just its head was almost the size of half of No Regrets City. The humans in the city were horrified. Many of them collapsed to the ground in fright. Such a huge snake only needed one bite to devour them all. They couldn't even escape. No good, why is this fellow here? Grim Demon was alarmed when he saw the giant snake. He beckoned Zhou to escape. Previously, Grim Demon had encountered this giant snake and nearly failed to return. Master, please save our clansmen. Liz and Lim rushed over and repeatedly kowtowed to Zhou. I'll give you a chance now. Things like you crawlers definitely don't have the ability to kill living beings of my race. Tell me who killed it. I can spare half of you today. I'll only eat half of you. The giant snake's voice sounded again. Everyone was even more alarmed. The giant snake originally imagined that these humans would quickly submit and tell it who killed the ancient snake. However, to its surprise, although everyone was trembling, no one said a word or told it who killed the ancient snake. All of them knelt on the ground and prayed in Zhou direction, muttering something about Lord Demon King. It looks like you don't want to live. The giant snake was enraged as it opened its mouth to devour a portion of the humans. When they knew fear, they would naturally speak. However, before the giant snake could exert its strength, it heard a voice say, "I killed that snake." The giant snake stopped its mouth and looked down at the source of the voice. He saw a human standing on the roof of a stone building. The voice just now had come from that human's mouth. A mere human actually dares to lie in front of me. From the looks of it, you really have a death wish. I'll fulfill your wish, the giant snake said as it opened its mouth and sucked at Zhou. A huge suction force sucked everything near Zhou into the giant snake's mouth like a tornado. Liz, Lim, and the nearby humans were swept into the air as they flew towards the snake's mouth with tragic cries. Master! Liz and Lim were still shouting, while the others were calling out for Lord Demon King. At this point, no one had exposed Zhou. It was obvious that their fear of the Demon King was greater than the giant snake. Zhou extended his hand and the golden flood dragon scissors transformed into a golden beam of light that slashed at the giant snake. The giant snake never expected a human to have such powerful strength. By the time it saw the golden flood dragon scissors, it was already too late. Sanguine light spewed out from the giant snake's body as it opened its mouth to bite at the golden flood dragon scissors, hoping to swallow it. However, the golden flood dragon scissors opened and closed, cutting the giant snake's head into two. The blood from the giant snake's body immediately flowed down the mountain like a waterfall. Boom! The giant snake's body also fell and was about to smash into the city. The giant snake's body was even bigger than No Regrets City. If it was hit, the entire city would probably be destroyed. Roar! Tyrant Behemoth was summoned by Zhou. Its gigantic body stood at the foot of the mountain as it held the giant snake's body with its claws, preventing it from falling. Long live Lord Demon King! The city lord led the people to kneel in Zhou direction. They naturally treated Tyrant Behemoth as a devil summoned by Zhou. From their point of view, as long as the Demon King was in the city, they wouldn't have to worry about the threat of the mutated creatures. How could there be an existence stronger than the Demon King in the world? Master! Liz and Lim's eyes lit up as they knelt there, looking at Zhou with admiration and reverence. Chapter 1547. Tyrant Behemoth placed the giant snake at the foot of the mountain. After the giant snake died, its body was easily torn apart by Tyrant Behemoth's sharp claws because it had lost its energy and activity. Not long after, Zhou saw that a portion of the snake's bones were blood-red in color and emitted a strange energy. It was likely a body part of a calamity. These parts were stored in the Chaos Bead by Zhou. This was a good item from a calamity grade. After advancing to the calamity grade, due to the huge energy requirement, he needed such high-energy flesh and bones to replenish his body's energy. Otherwise, he might really starve to death. Tsukuyami and company were examples. After leaving Earth, they had to hunt calamity creatures to maintain their energy. Inside the snake corpse, he also discovered a companion egg. It excited Zhou greatly. This was a calamity-grade companion beast that was extremely difficult to drop. There was too much snake meat left, so Zhou only took a portion and placed it in the chaos space. The rest was left for the people in Regretless City to improve their lives. Many of the people here had never eaten meat their entire lives. They didn't even know how to roast it. It was only after Zhou told them how to roast it that they managed to eat roasted snake meat. After a mouthful of snake meat, without any seasoning, many people were so excited that they cried, "Long live the Demon King!" Many people praised Zhou as they ate the snake meat. In the distant valley, a small snake was poking its head out of a crevice in the mountain. After looking for a while, it drilled into the mountain and disappeared. "Your Majesty, this meat is too delicious. This is the best part left for you." Liz ran over with a bowl of snake meat and offered it to Zhou. "You eat." Calamity-grade snake meat was definitely very delicious, but they were like barbarians. They roasted it and ate it directly. Ignoring the cumin and chili powder, they didn't even add salt. Zhou wasn't used to it. What's more, their skill at roasting snake meat was too poor. Some parts of the meat were not roasted well, while others were already burnt. "Your Majesty, this is specially for you. If Sis eats it, she'll definitely be cursed to death by everyone." Lim was much livelier. Although she was still very respectful to Zhou, she wasn't as reserved as before. It seemed that because they had saved No Regret City, the sisters felt that the Demon King had already regarded them as his own people. "Come here," Zhou called out. Liz came over with a bowl, picked up a piece of snake meat and said, "Master, let me serve you." "Place it on the table." Zhou was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. This place was just too backward. There wasn't even a knife and fork to eat, much less chopsticks. That's right. They just eat some grass roots and leaves. There's no need for cutlery. On second thought, Zhou understood their difficulties. Liz had no choice but to place the bowl on the table. Zhou took out his knife and fork and cut off the undercooked and charred parts, leaving only a portion that was roasted better. Then, he took out his barbecue seasoning and sprinkled it on the meat before cutting it into small pieces and eating it slowly with chopstick. Zhou preferred to eat kebabs, but these guys were roasted in large chunks, so he could only eat them this way. Liz and Lim stared at Zhou with widened eyes. They had never seen anyone eat like Zhou. They felt that the pair of chopsticks was like a divine artifact. Master is indeed the Demon King. Even when eating, he looks so elegant. Liz thought to herself. Liam stared at the meat in a daze. Her sense of smell was very sensitive, and the smell of the roasted meat was completely different from the original meat. The smell made Liam salivate uncontrollably. She couldn't help but swallow her saliva, and her stomach growled. They tried roasting meat, and when they were almost done with it, they immediately sent a piece of roasted meat to Zhou. They hadn't even taken a bite. "I don't want to eat this anymore. You guys eat it. Don't waste it." Zhou put down his chopsticks and walked back to the rocking chair. He lay down and took out his phone to check the information. "Thank you, Master." Liz and Lim saw that Zhou Wen's chopsticks and cutlery were placed there, but they didn't dare use them. All they did was carefully pick up the roasted meat with their hand. The moment the roasted meat entered their mouths, it was the saltiness of the salt and the spiciness of the chili powder, followed by the freshness of the cumin. Finally, the tenderness of the meat and the fragrance of the gravy seeped out, instantly filling their entire mouth. This complicated taste assaulted the sisters' taste buds. It was something they had never experienced before. They felt as though their hearts had melted with the roasted meat. Is this the food that the Demon King eats? It's really delicious. It's great to be able to follow the Demon King. Even if we die now, we won't have any regrets. The two women felt that they had lived all these years in vain. If Zhou Wen knew what they were thinking, he would probably be at a loss whether to laugh or cry. A little bit of roasted meat could be exchanged for 2 lives. Human lives were too worthless. However, Zhou Wen wasn't in the mood to pay attention to them, nor did he know what they were thinking. Now, Zhou Wen was reading Tyrant Behemoth's information. The evolved Tyrant Behemoth stats didn't exceed Zhou Wen's expectations. Tyrant Behemoth. Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence. Immense Strength, Devouring Mountains and Rivers Life Soul. Violent Crown Wheel of Destiny. Absolute Strength, S-Grade, Terror Transformation. Tyrant Calamity Domain. Super Domination Domain, Mortal Grade, Strength. 100 Speed. 100 Constitution, 100 Essence Energy, 100 Talent Skill, Mountain Devouring, Rampage, Behemoth, Armor Penetration, Piercing, Laceration, Poisonous Fangs, Bite, Ever Victorious, Unstoppable Companion Form, Boxing Glove. The stats and skills were within Zhou Wen's imagination. The main thing was to see what the Calamity Domain was. From the introduction, the Super Domination Domain was likely a domain that enhanced one's strength. Zhou Wen didn't study it too much. He would slowly try it out when he had the chance in the future. Now, what Zhou Wen mainly wanted to study was the giant snake companion egg. The companion egg had already been put away by Zhou Wen in-game as he checked its information. Ancient Snake, Calamity Grade Life Providence, Devil Life Soul, Snake Demon Wheel of Destiny, Devil's Language, S-Grade, Terror Transformation, Blood Shadow Calamity Domain, Temptation Domain, Hell Grade, Strength, 278 Speed, 267 Constitution, 245 Essence Energy, 232 Talent Skill, Whale Devouring, Poisonous Fangs, Laceration Companion Form, Magic Staff. Zhou Wen carefully studied Ancient Snake's information and realized that it was a very surprising companion beast. This was the first time Zhou Wen had seen a companion form like a magic staff. He had previously heard that there were magic staff-type companion beasts in the West District. Magic staffs had magic skills. However, the staff that Ancient Snake had transformed into was likely somewhat different from ordinary magic staff. Zhou Wen didn't think much of Ancient Snake's skills, but its Calamity Domain seemed rather interesting. Chapter 1548. Legend has it that Satan transformed into an ancient snake to lure Adam and Eve into depravity. Could this ancient snake's temptation domain be related to that legend? Zhou Wen guessed. To know the exact effects of the temptation domain, he had to test it out. Zhou Wen hatched the ancient snake and summoned it in the form of a staff. A snake-headed staff appeared in Zhou Wen's hand. It was about 2 meters long. The head of the staff was the snake's head, and the staff's tail was the snake's tail. In the middle was a coiled snake's body. Its body was as red as blood, and its eyes were like 2 rubies. They shimmered with a demonic glow, making it look extremely strange. Zhou Wen waved it a few times and injected primordial energy into the staff, but he realized that the staff didn't have any long-range attack abilities, nor did it come with any magic. What kind of crappy staff is this? Could it be that a mage uses a staff like a rod? Is this a mage or a warrior? Zhou Wen muttered to himself. He brought Ancient Snake to the dungeon in-game and allowed it to return to its original form. A gigantic ancient snake appeared in front of Zhou. With such a huge body, it was definitely powerful in close combat. However, what Zhou wanted to know wasn't its close combat abilities, but the use of its domain. The dimensional creatures rushed towards Zhou. Although they were all low-level creatures, with none at the mythical stage, Zhou still got Ancient Snake to use its domain to test its abilities. Zhou originally imagined that a companion beast like Ancient Snake would cause quite a stir when it released its domain, but to his surprise, there weren't any photoelectric effects. All he heard was a hissing sound coming from Ancient Snake's mouth. Although the sound wasn't loud, it sounded like the murmurs of a devil. It left Zhou feeling vexed. Zhou only felt vexed. The other dimensional creatures that approached Ancient Snake seemed to have gone mad as they wrestled with each other. The scene was chaotic. Zhou was overjoyed. Clearly, the temptation domain was a domain that could throw the enemy's mind into chaos. It could even make enemies kill each other. This reminded Zhou of the dimensional creature on Merak. Its sound elemental powers could actually make the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors turn against it. There seemed to be some similarities. He walked into the dungeon with Ancient Snake. This feeling was indeed satisfying. He didn't even need to do anything for the dimensional creatures to fight among themselves. It was like a god that controlled all life. However, the temptation domain wasn't invincible. Zhou attempted to get Ancient Snake to use the temptation domain on him, but it was useless. All he felt was some mental pressure. The creatures on Merak seemed to have a similar ability, but it's even stronger than Ancient Snake's temptation domain. I wonder if Ancient Snake's temptation domain will be able to resist Star Monarch Mammoth Gate's power. With this in mind, Zhou immediately activated the Big Dipper dungeon. The Dubhe Palace's Starlord Greed hadn't respawned yet, so Zhou went straight to the Jade Palace and fought Starlord Juman again. Stellar Lord Giant Gate let out a terrifying roar again as a powerful shockwave surged over. Zhou first summoned the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and the Ancient Snake before using the Chaos Egg to protect himself. The Golden Scissor Dragon went against the sound waves, while the Ancient Snake stood there motionlessly. It flicked its tongue and let out a strange whisper. The Ancient Snake's whisper didn't have any lethality. When it encountered Stellar Lord Giant Gate's roar, it seemed to vanish. There was almost no sound. The Ancient Snake's coarse skin and thick flesh allowed it to withstand for the time being. What Zhou was most worried about was that the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors would fly back and attack him ruthlessly. Strangely, that did not happen this time. The Golden Flood Dragon Scissors quickly rushed over and chopped off Star Lord Juman's head with one slash. Killed Stellar Lord Giant Gate. Discovered Dimensional Crystal. He died just like that? Zhou still found it unbelievable. Stellar Lord Giant Gate only dropped 2 stat crystals and no companion eggs, leaving Zhou somewhat disappointed. However, it was already a pleasant surprise to be able to kill Stellar Lord Giant Gate. He couldn't ask for too much. The Golden Flood Dragon Scissors is really too practical. As long as I can get close, I can even split someone of the same level into 2. Zhou increasingly liked the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. During this period of time, Zhou had also attempted the Venus dungeon, but he was killed by the strange tool every time. Up to now, Zhou didn't know what the tool was, nor had he won once. It was useless even if he brought the Hellgrade Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. He would still die the same way. After feeding the stat crystals to the companion beasts, Zhou arrived at the back of the Jade Star Palace. Indeed, there was a teleportation array there. Without any hesitation, Zhou chose to head for the 3rd star, Fekta. There was relatively little information regarding Fekta. It wasn't as famous as Dubhe and Merak. Zhou only knew its name, but he wasn't too sure about the legends. Fekta Palace wasn't as exaggerated as Jade Star Palace. It looked like an ordinary temple on Earth. When he opened the door to Fekta Palace, he saw a person in green armor inside. Zhou only remembered the name of Fekta, but he couldn't recall the name of the corresponding Stellar Lord. Regardless of what Stellar Lord the other party was, Zhou only had the same set of tricks. He used the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors and Ancient Snake's Temptation Domain. Green-armored Stellar Lord didn't seem as ferocious as Star-Lord Greed and Stellar Lord Giant Gate. When the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors flew over, he didn't seem to react at all. Crack! Green-armored Stellar Lord was sliced into two by the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. Zhou imagined that he could successfully pass the test and head to the Star Palace below to take a look, but he heard another crack. The Golden Flood Dragon Scissors had snapped. How can this be? Zhou was alarmed. The Golden Flood Dragon Scissors were one of the toughest at the Hell stage. Even a Heaven stage creature would find it difficult to slice through the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. Furthermore, Zhou didn't discover anything pouncing at the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors. It looked like the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors had snapped by itself. Thankfully, they were in-game. Otherwise, it would be a huge loss if the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors snap. As for the Green Armor Star Venerate, when the Golden Flood Dragon Scissors broke, his body strangely recovered. It was as if he had never been injured. Zhou heart palpitated as he got Ancient Snake to charge over. Ancient Snake's Temptation Domain didn't seem to have any effect on Green-armored Stellar Lord. He stood there unaffected. Ancient Snake bit down and swallowed Green-armored Stellar Lord. Green-armored Stellar Lord's tiny body wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between Ancient Snake's teeth. Before Zhou could rejoice, the Ancient Snake's massive body suddenly shrank. It was unknown how the Green-armored Star Lord had appeared out of thin air from the Ancient Snake's body. Instead, he opened his mouth and swallowed the Ancient Snake that had turned into a tiny snake. What's going on? What's going on with this fellow? Zhou was dumbfounded. Chapter 1549. Green-armored Star Lord stood there without any intention of taking the initiative to attack. He stared coldly at the blood-colored avatar as though he was saying, "Didn't you want to kill me? Come on." Zhou summoned Bamboo Blade and slashed at Green-armored Star Lord. Green Armor Star Lord really didn't dodge. He stood there and allowed Zhou to slash at him. The bamboo blade in Zhou hand was as fast as lightning as he slashed at Green Armor Star Lord again and again. With the bamboo blade's destructive power and Zhou strength, he was already equivalent to a Calamity grade strength. After more than 100 slashes, he only managed to leave some marks on the armor. He was unable to truly hurt the Green Armor Star Sovereign. One wound after another appeared on Zhou body. The spots where his body was injured were the spots where Bamboo Blade had left marks on Green Armor Star Lord's body. Bang! Just as Zhou saber stopped, Green Armor Star Lord punched the blood-colored avatar, killing it. The game screen turned black. This time, Zhou didn't immediately re-enter the game. Instead, he closed his eyes and recalled the battle. Green Armor Star Lord's power looks like a rebound, but it's definitely not as simple as that. No matter how strong the rebound is, it's impossible for him to transfer his injuries to someone else like this. The more Zhou thought about it, the more excited he became. He liked this kind of novel instance dungeon. It was really boring to always run the same instance dungeon. After pondering for a long time, he still couldn't figure out this problem, so he could only continue grinding dungeons. Xiao Chen tried many more times, but the result was the same. No matter what kind of attack landed on the Green Armor Star Venerate, the injury would return to him. This was simply unbelievable. Xiao Chen had thought of all sorts of methods. Unless he could only defend and not attack, he would be done for if he managed to injure the Green Armor Star Venerate. It was useless to blindly send himself to death again and again. Zhou decided not to grind the Big Dipper dungeon. Instead, he grinded other dungeons, hoping to have a different mindset. However, even if he couldn't kill Green Armor Star Lord, Zhou now had enough of a chance to return home. He was probably the only person on Earth who could kill 2 Star Lords in a row. Master, your roast meat. When it was mealtime, Lim brought the roast meat over. Eat it. Zhou was already sick of eating barbecued meat every meal recently. He really couldn't bring himself to eat it. I don't think that's a good idea. It's a gift for you, Master, Lim said. I told you to eat it. Do you dare to say that you didn't? Eat in peace, Zhou said indifferently. Thank you, Master. Although Lim said that, she didn't eat the roasted meat. She continued looking at Zhou eagerly. Seeing Lim's expression, Zhou immediately understood what she was up to. He took out some seasoning and gave it to her. Sprinkle it yourself. Thank you, Master. Lim was so excited that she almost couldn't speak. The humans here are still easily satisfied. When they come into contact with the bustling earth, I'm afraid they won't have such pure happiness, Zhou thought. Liam took the seasoning and ran to find Liz. The 2 of them sprinkled seasoning on the barbecue and ate until their mouths were greasy. It's at the epic stage after all. There's no need to eat to this extent, right? Zhou shook his head with a bitter smile. Suddenly, Zhou realized something and looked at Liz and Lim again. Something's not right. Liz and Lim are at the epic stage. To be able to reach the epic stage at their age, they're considered impressive geniuses on Earth. But how did they advance to the epic stage? This was because the humans in Regretless City were just too weak. They were so weak that Zhou hadn't thought much about their problems. However, on careful thought, most of the humans in the city were at the legendary stage. There were quite a few at the epic stage, but how did they advance? A place like Regretless City didn't have any low-level creatures. The weakest creature outside was at the mythical stage, and there wasn't a single mythical creature in Regretless City. How could they hunt the wrong ones? Zhou called Liz over and asked, Liz, let me ask you something. You need to answer me truthfully. Master, just give me the instructions, Liz hurriedly said. How did the humans in your city advance from the mortal stage? What tools do they usually like to use? What does advancement mean? Liz asked in puzzlement. Do you know about life providences and life souls? Zhou asked after some thought. I know. Isn't that something that's present at birth? There's no need to advance, Liz answered. Present at birth? Are you sure? This time, Zhou was truly excited. It was simply unimaginable that there were humans who were born at the legendary stage and epic stage. Of course I'm sure. The people in our city all have life providences after they're born. Some of the stronger children even have life souls when they're born, Liz said after some thought. How did these fellows do it? From the looks of it, I have to investigate carefully. Zhou decided to figure out why the people in Regretless City received such treatment. Liz, what's your life providence and life soul? Zhou asked Liz first. Liz and Lim walked over. When they heard Zhou ask them, they explained their life providences and life soul abilities in detail. The more Zhou heard, the more alarmed he became. Their life providences and life souls were very special, better than many earthlings. Call the city lord over. Seeing that Liz and Lim couldn't explain it clearly, Zhou planned on getting someone useful over. Perhaps he could explain it clearly. Zhou learned some useful information from the city lord. It was said that the humans in Regretless City were indeed very weak in the past, but with the passage of time, they were slowly becoming stronger. In the past, the babies born were very normal. They were all at the mortal stage, but with generations of reproduction in Regretless City, babies were now born with the superpowers of the legendary stage, or even terrifying existences at the epic stage. As for the exact reason, the city lord wasn't sure. There were a few guesses in the past, but there was no way to verify them, the city lord said after some thought. Tell me about it. Zhou was very interested in such matters. Legends are roughly divided into 3 types. The first is that because we often eat those grass roots, it improves our physique, allowing us to become better and better. What's the second? Zhou felt that this explanation wasn't reliable. He had recently tasted the things they ate and there was nothing special about them. They weren't even considered ordinary dimensional plant. At most, they were mutated plant. The second explanation is related to a treasure in Regretless City. Legend has it that there's a treasure buried in Regretless City. It was brought out from the Garden of Eden by 2 ancestors, the city lord said after some hesitation. Chapter 1550. A treasure brought out of the Garden of Eden? Zhou frowned in thought. Legend has it that Adam and Eve were chased out of the Garden of Eden for secretly eating the forbidden fruit. What could they have brought out of the Garden of Eden? The forbidden fruit? This was the only thing Zhou could think of. However, there were definitely many good things in the Garden of Eden. If they had taken something else in passing, it was impossible for Zhou to guess. This Regretless City looks very ordinary, but there's something sinister about it. Adam and Eve's tomb is filled with 2 puppets, and it's said that there's a treasure buried under the city that allows humans to be born with a life providence and life soul. This place is really a little odd, Zhou thought to himself. The city lord stole a glance at Zhou and said timidly, "There's a third guess. It's said that this place has received your magic powers protection, which is why we have everything we have now. I believe that this is the truth. Everything we have was given to us by you, your majesty. Okay, go busy yourself." After Zhou sent the city lord away, he thought about what the city lord had just said. The possibility of the third possibility wasn't high. The first possibility was even more ridiculous. Zhou had eaten the root of the stone grass before. It was just the root of an ordinary plant. Even if it had any effects, it could at most be used as a herb. It was impossible for it to allow humans to evolve to such an extent. After some thought, the second possibility was the most likely. However, Zhou was really interested in knowing what kind of treasure was beneath Regretless City. What kind of treasure could raise the starting point of humans to such a high level? How can I find it? Zhou planned on trying to find it. Truth Listener's ability was very powerful. It could even penetrate the thick mountain and hear the structure of the cave inside the mountain. However, beneath Regretless City was a real mountain. He didn't discover any caves. Since the item isn't in the mountain, the greatest possibility is that it's in Regretless City. Zhou used Truth Listener to constantly scan, but he didn't ignore any details, hoping to find any clues. The architecture of Regretless City was very interesting. There were all sorts of statues, carvings, and wall carvings. Zhou repeatedly scanned it, but he didn't discover any power that could allow humans to evolve. Could it be that the treasures of Regretless City are related to those 2 puppets? After some thought, Zhou realized that the most mysterious thing in Regretless City was likely the 2 puppets. If it was really because of the 2 puppets, Zhou really didn't dare dig them up. He had learned from Grim Demon's mistake. Who knew what strange things would happen if he took the 2 puppets out? However, Zhou wasn't willing to give up just like that. Now, Zhou wanted to establish a city in Guide City. If he really had such a treasure and buried it in his city, the benefits he would receive would be unimaginable. Ignoring the enhancement to newborns, just the advertising effect would bring Zhou one huge benefit. Which parent wouldn't want their offspring to win at the starting line? Who wouldn't want their children to be a cut above others? The stronger one was, the stronger they would want their descendants to be. When they knew that the children born in Zhou City were born at the legendary or even epic stage, how many people would come to Zhou City to have children? Just this alone allowed Zhou to recruit a large number of human experts. Even if these human experts weren't willing to join Zhou City, they could take the opportunity to earn large amounts of benefit. They could even be used to exchange for resources that couldn't be obtained with money. In short, with this treasure, it was impossible for Zhou not to develop it. The crux was how to find this treasure. Also, He had to find a safe place to build the city so that others couldn't enter casually. Let's take a look first. If there's no treasure, it's useless thinking about it. Zhou pondered for a moment and took out a tiny beast from the chaos space. The tiny beast looked like a mink, a rat, but not a rat. It also had a squirrel-like tail. It looked very strange. This tiny beast's origins weren't simple. Back then, Tai Sui was bitten out of an iron walnut by this tiny beast. Furthermore, it could replicate an artifact like the orchid blade. The orchid blade replicated had the same materials and effect. It was extremely magical. After Zhou obtained this tiny beast, he had been raising it in the chaos space. Later, he had done a lot of research, but he couldn't figure out its origins. However, Zhou knew very well the tiny beast's abilities. It had a rare earth escape technique and was good at finding treasures. Now, Zhou had no other choice but to take it out and give it a try. After all, he had raised it for so many years. This tiny beast was much less wild than before. It was considered close to Zhou, but it was a little too smart. Zhou didn't have much confidence in its loyalty. The moment the tiny beast came out, it looked around furtively. Perhaps it had been too long since it came out, so it was a little uncomfortable and appeared a little reserved. However, after it had taken a good look at its surroundings, it began to gradually reveal its true nature, its furtive eyes looking everywhere. There's a treasure in this city. If you can find it, we'll split the treasure equally. In addition, I'll give you a mythical companion egg as a reward. Zhou promised the tiny beast some benefits first. The tiny beast wasn't his companion beast, nor was it as loyal as the chick. It was difficult to move it if he didn't offer some benefits. When the tiny beast heard Zhou's words, it stood up like a human and gestured at Zhou with its two tiny claws. Its actions were very simple. It extended its claws and flipped them back and forth several times. You want 20? Aren't you being a little too greedy? At most 2, Zhou said. However, the tiny beast was very persistent. It waved its claws and gestured another 20, refusing to give in at all. 3, 4, 5, 10. Zhou kept increasing the price, but the tiny beast was very willful. It didn't go any lower. It meant it when it said 20. Alright, 20 it is. However, the thing you find has to be the one I want. You can't just randomly find something to fool me, Zhou said. The little critter nodded, then looked around for a while, sniffed the air with its nose, and ran in a certain direction. Zhou hurriedly followed the tiny beast and watched it sniff left and right. It looked like a police dog. After leaving the cemetery, the people on the street immediately worshipped Zhou piously when they saw him. Wherever Zhou went, there would be people kneeling on the ground. It made him very uncomfortable. The tiny beast didn't care as it circled around the city. After a while, it headed for the cliff. Chapter 1551. Zhou had come from the cliff. Opposite the cliff was the lost paradise. He had previously observed the cliff and didn't discover anything amiss. However, the beast firmly ran towards the edge of the cliff, leaving Zhou somewhat puzzled. Could it be that the treasure is below the cliff? Soon, Zhou dismissed this thought because the little beast had stopped at the edge of the cliff and was sniffing at a rock. Could it be that there's something wrong with that rock? Zhou's mind locked onto the rock, but he didn't discover any problems. It was as though it was just an ordinary mountain rock, no different from the rocks beside it. From the looks of it, this little thing of yours isn't very reliable, Grim Demon said. Before Zhou could answer, the little beast seemed to understand him. It bared its teeth at Grim Demon as though it was cursing him. You can see me? Grim Demon was slightly taken aback. He was in his terror form and hadn't reached the terror grade, so it was impossible for him to see him. This beast's body level was clearly very low. It was impossible for it to reach the terror grade. Grim Demon naturally found it unbelievable that it could see Grim Demon. The beast continued shouting at him, clearly able to see him. Zhouwen wasn't in the mood to care about them. He walked to the rock and carefully sized it up. It was likely an ordinary mountain rock, but there was something strange about it. On the edge of the cliff was a platform. The rest was flat, and only this rock protruded a foot high. It was very smooth from friction. "You, come here." Zhouwen called a person kneeling not far away over and asked, "Why is there a protruding rock here?" The person thought for a moment and answered, "Your Excellency, this rock has been here for a long time. I don't know when it was here because it's on the edge of the cliff. We usually tie a rope to this rock and use the rope to go down the cliff to find some edible plants and fungi." "Get your city lord here," Zhouwen instructed when he saw that he didn't know much. Not long after, the elder jogged over. After meeting him, he knelt down again. "All right, stop bowing. Tell me, when was this rock here?" Zhouwen waved his hand to stop the elder from kneeling. He was already used to these etiquettes, and it was a waste of time. Only then did the old man stand properly and say, "Reporting to your Majesty Demon King, I have only heard from the older generation that there was originally a monument erected here. This monument was here before the establishment of No Regrets City. Because they didn't know who set it up here, the older generation didn't dare to tear it down. After a long time, there was nothing special about this monument, so the older generation used this monument as a pillar, tied it with a rope, and went down to the bottom of the valley in search of food." The old man paused and continued, "After a long time, the wind and rain, coupled with a few accidental injuries, the stone tablet broke. After that, we avoided some other difficulties. When it came to our generation, this was all that was left of the stone tablet. As for its origin, we are not too sure." "Stone tablet?" Zhouwen frowned as he looked at the foot-tall protrusion. It was difficult to associate it with a monument. Moreover, this tablet could actually shatter. If it was really such a magical thing, how could it shatter so easily? The people of No Regrets City didn't know much about this stone, so Zhouwen waved his hand and sent them away. The little beast ran in front of Zhouwen and gestured with its claws. From the looks of it, it was asking Zhouwen for its companion egg. This fellow was like a weasel, but it didn't like to eat eggs, but companion eggs. The higher its level, the more it liked to eat them. Zhouwen had previously fed it quite a number of companion eggs. Although their levels weren't high and most of them were at the epic stage, he had never seen them evolve over the years. "Are you sure this stone is a treasure?" Zhouwen asked the little beast. The little beast pointed at the stone with its claws and made a digging motion. Zhouwen immediately understood that the treasure wasn't this stone, but underneath it. Zhouwen summoned Tyrant Behemoth and got it to dig open the stone. This kind of hard work was most suitable for it. Tyrant Behemoth didn't transform into its gigantic form. It shrank to a height of 4 to 5 meters. It extended its claws and with a swipe, the stone was sliced open like tofu. With just a few movements of its claws, the protruding stone was dug out, forming a pit more than a meter deep on the cliff. Clang! Tyrant Behemoth's claws seemed to have touched something as it produced the sound of metal clashing. Zhouwen hurriedly walked over and looked into the pit. He realized that a green metal object was revealed. It looked like bronze. He summoned the bamboo blade and dug up the rock beside the bronze artifact. Soon, the bronze artifact was completely exposed. "What's this?" Zhouwen sized up the bronze that had been pulled out of the pit, but after looking at it for a while, he couldn't figure out what it was. This item looked very strange. Zhouwen had never seen such bronze before. Ordinary bronze wares, such as cauldrons, furnaces, jades, and the like, not to mention the commonly seen ones, even some bronze wares whose names were unknown would probably look somewhat similar. However, this bronze item was different from the bronze items Zhouwen had seen in the past. This was the first time Zhouwen had seen a bronze item that looked like a radish. Furthermore, it was a short and fat radish. It was plump and more than a meter tall. The key was that there were 3 leaf-like pieces at the top. No matter how he looked at it, it was a huge radish. What the hell is this thing? Don't tell me it's a radish grown in the Garden of Eden? Joanne reached out and knocked on it. It was indeed the sound of metal, but it was hard to tell if it was bronze. There were many mysterious symbols engraved on the bronze item. Unfortunately, Joanne didn't know what they meant. Joanne increased his strength bit by bit. In the end, he used almost all his strength, but he failed to damage the bronze item that looked like a huge radish. It's really something good. His strength was already comparable to a human creature. Even his strength couldn't damage it. Even if it was only valuable as a material, it was definitely something good. A radish grown in the Garden of Eden is indeed extraordinary. Joanne didn't store the bronze item in the chaos space. Instead, he got Grim Demon to guard it. He wanted to see if there was anything wrong with it to prevent him from bringing it back. Is there only this thing here? Are there any other treasures? Joanne turned to ask the beast. The beast hesitated for a moment before looking in the direction of the cemetery. Finally, it shook its head as though it was afraid of something. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.